You're being killed by Izuku Sukehiro, who really enjoyed his perfect toilet and is extremely pissed that your Nomus destroyed it. Any last words before I send you to hell? What happens when the most powerful villain in history makes the fatal mistake? Welcome to the most brutal story ever told, where All For One himself learns that some limits should never be crossed.
Welcome, legends, to Chronos Recom. I wrote this story myself, so if you have any suggestions or what-ifs you want to see, drop it in the comments below. Also, just wanted to let you know I've got a Patreon set up now for anyone who wants to support the channel directly. You can get early access to stories, submit direct fan requests, and get exclusive content. It's totally optional, but if you want to help keep these stories coming, check it out. Links in the description. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit that bell so you never miss an upload. Let's dive into this story.
The fishing boat captain who found the massive teenage boy washed up on Mustafu's coastline thought he was dead at first. The kid was built like a damn truck, all muscle and scars, with a ratty black tank top clinging to his frame and what looked like a genuine katana strapped to his hip. His hair was an unruly mess of dark green, and even unconscious, he had this permanent scowl etched into his face like someone had carved it there with a chisel. "Hey, kid, you alive?" The captain poked him with a stick. The boy's eyes snapped open, dark, intense, and absolutely furious. "Did you just poke me with a fucking stick?" The captain stumbled backward. "I was just checking if... Where the hell am I? And where's the nearest toilet? I got a situation brewing and it ain't pretty. This is Mustafu, Japan. Are you..." The boy stood up, towering over the captain at what had to be 6 feet of pure intimidation. He cracked his neck, the sound like breaking bamboo, and looked around at the beach with the expression of someone who'd just woken up in a garbage dump. "Japan? The hell did I end up here?" He patted his pockets, found a crushed pack of cigarettes that somehow survived whatever ordeal brought him here, and stuck one in his mouth. Didn't light it, just let it dangle there, like it belonged. "Listen, kid, you look pretty roughed up. Should I call someone? Your parents? The police?" The boy's hand went to the katana at his hip, his fingers drumming against the handle. "Do I look like I got parents? And the police can go screw themselves. I'm fine." He started walking toward the city, each step purposeful despite the fact he had no idea where he was going. "Thanks for not leaving me for dead or whatever. Now piss off before I get cranky." The captain watched him go, this foreign-looking mountain of a teenager with a sword and an attitude problem, and wondered if he should call the authorities anyway. He decided against it. Something about that kid said that involving the cops would only end badly for the cops, the boy who would eventually be known as Izuku Sukehiro, though he had no memory of that name yet, just fragments of 2 lives tangled in his head like barbed wire. Found a nice spot under a bridge in the industrial district. It wasn't much. Cardboard boxes, the smell of low tide, and the occasional rumble of traffic overhead. But it had one crucial advantage. Nobody bothered him. At least, not for the first 2 days. He'd spent that time trying to piece together what the hell happened to him. He remembered being someone else, a captain, a fighter, someone important. He remembered darkness, real darkness, the kind that could swallow light itself. And he remembered dying, probably, because why else would he wake up in a different body in a different country with only a sword and a bad attitude? The memories of this body's original owner were there too, fuzzy and distant. A kid named Izuku Midoriya, quirkless, bullied, weak. The memories made him want to vomit. All that crying, all that hero worship, all that pathetic groveling. "Yeah, that ain't me," he muttered, lighting another cigarette with a lighter he'd stolen from a convenience store. "That kid's dead, and I ain't bringing him back." On the 3rd day, his peace ended. He was napping on his cardboard mattress, dreaming about a golden toilet with heated seats and bidet functions that could massage your soul, when 3 idiots decided to make the worst decision of their lives. "Yo, look at this homeless bastard," one of them said. "Tall guy, lizard mutation, quirk, scales covering his arms. Bet he's got something valuable." "That's a real sword, man," another one said, shorter, stocky, with stone-like skin. "We could pawn that for serious cash." The third one, a wiry guy with electricity crackling around his fingers, kicked Izuku's boot. "Wake up, jackass. Hand over the..." Izuku's eyes opened. Slowly, deliberately, the look in them could have frozen magma. "Oi," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "I was having the best dream of my life. A golden toilet, heated seat, playing Mozart while I handled my business, and you three cockknockers just ruined it." The lizard guy laughed nervously. "Listen, man, we don't want trouble. Just give us the sword and whatever money you got, and we'll..." Izuku sat up. The movement was so fast, so fluid, that all three muggers took an involuntary step back. He stood to his full height, and suddenly the space under the bridge felt a lot smaller. He pulled the cigarette from his mouth, flicked it at the lizard guy's face, and rested his hand on his katana's handle. "You woke me up," Izuku said. "You interrupted my golden toilet dream. And now you want my sword?" His scowl deepened into something truly terrifying. "I'm gonna have to kill you." Kill us?" the electric guy stammered. "Dude, we're just..." Izuku's sword cleared its sheath in a blur of black steel, but it wasn't just a sword anymore. Darkness, real, tangible darkness that seemed to eat the light around it, wrapped around the blade like living shadow. The air grew cold. The mugger's breath came out in visible puffs. "What the hell is that?" the stone-skinned one shouted. "Dark magic," Izuku said, like he was commenting on the weather. The words felt right, natural, like they'd always been part of him. "Lightless slash." He swung the sword in a lazy horizontal arc. The slash of darkness that erupted from the blade was silent. No dramatic sound effects, no flashy lights, just pure, absolute cutting force that devoured everything in its path. It carved through the muggers, who barely had time to scream, and kept going. It carved through the concrete support pillar behind them. It carved through the bridge itself, and then half the bridge collapsed into the river with a thunderous crash that could be heard for miles. Izuku looked at the destruction, at the three muggers who were now unconscious and lucky to be alive, at the emergency sirens already blaring in the distance. He sighed. "Damn it. Now I gotta find a new spot." The pro heroes arrived 6 minutes later. Kamui Woods, Mont Lady, and Death Arms, responding to reports of a villain attack and structural collapse. What they found was a muscular teenage boy sitting on a chunk of rubble, smoking a cigarette with three criminals tied up with their own belts and an entire bridge support cut clean through like butter. "Freeze," Death Arms shouted, his massive fists raised. "You're under arrest for..." Izuku didn't even look at him. "Arrest? For what? Self-defense? Those idiots attacked me. I defended myself." "Not my fault they were weak as hell." Mount Lady, currently at normal size to navigate the debris, stepped forward. "Kid, you just destroyed public property and..." "Wait, is that a real sword?" "No, it's a fake sword that can cut through bridges," Izuku said flatly. "What do you think?" Kamui Woods extended his branches, trying to restrain Izuku from a distance. "We need to take you into custody for questioning. If you resist..." The branches wrapped around Izuku's arms and torso. He looked down at them, looked back up at Kamui Woods, and flexed. The branches exploded into splinters. "Weak," Izuku said. He stood up, and all three pro heroes immediately went into combat stances. "You call yourselves heroes? You couldn't even restrain a guy sitting down." He drew his sword again, and that same darkness coiled around it. "Come on then. Show me what you got." Death Arms charged first, because of course he did. Big guys always charged first. Izuku didn't move until the hero's fist was inches from his face. Then he tilted his head slightly to the left, reading Death Arms' movement through something he didn't fully understand yet. A sense, an awareness of life energy and intent that let him see attacks before they landed. Ki, his fractured memories supplied. "You can sense Ki." "Too slow," Izuku said, and slammed his elbow into Death Arms' gut. The hero doubled over, the wind knocked out of him, and Izuku grabbed his arm and flipped him over his shoulder into a pile of rubble. Next, Mont Lady grew to full size, or tried to. Izuku's sword flashed, and a wave of darkness slammed into her, not cutting but pushing, forcing her back to normal size before she could complete the transformation. "The hell?" she shouted. "Darkness eats energy," Izuku explained, walking toward her with his sword resting on his shoulder. "Quirks, magic, whatever you want to call it. My darkness swallows it up. So your growth trick? Useless." Kamui Woods launched another assault, branches coming from all directions, trying to cage Izuku in. This time, Izuku didn't bother dodging. He spun his sword in a circle, darkness spiraling around him like a shield, and every branch that touched it dissolved into nothing. Dark magic, black hole, Izuku said, and thrust his palm forward. A sphere of absolute darkness formed in front of Kamui Woods, pulling the hero's branches toward it, pulling the hero himself toward it. Kamui dug his roots into the ground, resisting, but the suction was relentless. "Stop!" Mount Lady shouted. "We're heroes. We're trying to help." Izuku dispelled the black hole with a wave of his hand. Kamui Woods collapsed, exhausted. "Help? You attacked me. I was sitting there minding my own business, and you three showed up trying to tie me up." He pointed his sword at all three of them. "Weak, all of you. You talk about being heroes, but you can't even handle one guy. Push past your limits or get the hell out of my face." Death Arms struggled to his feet, clutching his ribs. Who the hell are you?" Izuku opened his mouth to answer and realized he didn't actually know. The name Izuku Midoriya felt wrong, like a shoe that didn't fit. But he didn't have anything else. "Call me whatever you want," he finally said. "I don't give a shit." He sheathed his sword and started walking away. "Tell your boss or whoever that I don't want trouble. I just want to be left alone." "We can't just let you go," Mont Lady called after him. "You're dangerous." Izuku stopped, turned, gave her a look that could wilt flowers. "Then try to stop me, see what happens." They didn't try. The video footage of the incident went viral within hours. A teenage boy with a sword and some kind of darkness quirk, demolishing 3 pro heroes without breaking a sweat. The news networks couldn't decide if he was a villain, a vigilante, or just an extremely troubled youth. The Hero Public Safety Commission wanted him arrested. The police wanted nothing to do with him. And Nezu, principal of UA High School, watched the footage 17 times in his office, his paws steepled under his chin, his impossibly intelligent eyes gleaming with interest. "Fascinating," he said to himself. "Absolutely fascinating." 3 days later, Izuku was trying to figure out how to get food without money when a small white creature in a suit appeared in front of him. Literally appeared, like it teleported or something. "Good afternoon," the creature said cheerfully. "My name is Nezu, and I'm the principal of UA High School. Might I have a moment of your time?" Izuku stared at him, blinked. "Are you a dog, a mouse, or a bear?" "Yes," Nezu said, "but more importantly, I'm an educator, and I've been watching your recent activities with great interest." "Creepy. I prefer thorough. Now, I have a proposition for you, young man. How would you like to attend UA?" Izuku snorted. "School? Yeah, no thanks. Sounds like a pain in the ass. We have the finest combat training facilities in Japan." Nezu continued, undeterred. "The best instructors, opportunities to fight strong opponents and refine your abilities. Don't care. We provide free meals, dormitory housing, and still don't care." Nezu's smile widened. He'd saved the best for last. "We have heated toilet seats, with bidet functions and privacy." Izuku's head snapped toward him so fast it should have given him whiplash. "What?" "Heated. Toilet. Seats." Nezu repeated, enunciating each word. "The finest bathroom facilities money can buy. Multiple stalls, always clean, never occupied. A veritable throne room for your necessities." Izuku's eye twitched. He could feel it, the rumble, the warning signs. He'd been holding it for hours, looking for a decent bathroom, finding nothing but disgusting public restrooms or places that kicked him out for looking homeless. And here was this weird animal thing, offering him paradise. "You son of a bitch," Izuku said. "I'm in." Nezu's smile could have lit up a city. "Excellent. I'll have the paperwork prepared immediately. Oh, and you should know, UA's entrance exam is in 2 weeks, but given your unique circumstances, I'm admitting you via recommendation. You'll start with the other first years after the exam. Whatever. Just show me these toilets." "All in good time. First, we need to discuss your background. Your name, for instance." Izuku scratched his head. Izuku Sukehiro. The last name came to him from nowhere and everywhere at once, from the memories of the captain, the fighter, the man he used to be. It felt right. It felt real. "Sukehiro," Nezu repeated, testing the name. "Foreign origin?" "Something like that." "And your quirk? What do you call it?" Izuku thought about it. The darkness, the magic, the ability to cut through anything and sense life energy. "Dark matter," he said. "My quirk is dark matter." "Intriguing. Well then, Izuku Sukehiro, welcome to UA High School. I have a feeling you're going to make things very interesting around here." Izuku grunted. "Just show me the damn toilets." The day of the UA entrance exam, Izuku didn't show up. He was too busy occupying one of UA's legendary bathrooms, dealing with what he would later describe as a supernatural event that required divine intervention and 3 courtesy flushes. Nezu didn't mind. He'd already prepared Izuku's admission. The exam was a formality for everyone else. When the first day of school finally arrived, Izuku walked through UA's gates with a cigarette in his mouth, unlit, because even he wasn't stupid enough to smoke on school grounds where Aizawa could expel him before homeroom, and his katana on his hip. He'd traded his ratty tank top for the UA uniform, though he wore it like he was doing the uniform a favor. Shirt untucked, tie loose, jacket open. He looked like a delinquent's final form. He found Class 1A easily enough. The door was huge, probably designed for mutation-type students. He could hear voices inside. Loud voices. Arguing. Perfect. Izuku kicked the door open. It slammed against the wall with a bang that made everyone inside jump. "The hell are you all yelling about?" he growled, scanning the classroom. "It's 8 in the morning. Some of us are trying not to develop a migraine." A spiky-haired blonde kid with red eyes and a permanent sneer stood up so fast his chair fell over. "Who the hell are you? And did you just kick the door like some kind of..." Izuku was across the classroom in 3 strides. He grabbed the blonde kid's head and slammed it down onto the desk. Not hard enough to cause real damage, but hard enough to make a point. "Shut the fuck up," Izuku said calmly. "Your voice is annoying." The classroom went dead silent. The spiky-haired kid, Bakugo, his memories supplied, Katsuki Bakugo, childhood bully and general asshole, struggled against Izuku's grip, explosions popping in his palms. "Let go of me, you bastard. I'll..." Izuku's hand didn't budge. "You'll what? Explode? Go ahead. See if it works." He leaned down, his scowl deepening. "I've fought people who could level mountains. You think some firecracker quirk scares me?" A girl with brown hair and pink cheeks half stood from her seat. Maybe you should." "Sit down," Izuku said without looking at her. "This doesn't concern you." A boy with glasses and what looked like engines in his legs stood up properly, chopping his hand through the air. "This is unacceptable behavior. Release Bakugo immediately and..." "Make me," Izuku said. He finally let go of Bakugo's head and turned to face the rest of the class. About 20 students, all staring at him with varying expressions of shock, fear, and confusion. "Any of you got a problem with me? Speak now or shut up forever." Nobody spoke. Good. Izuku spotted an empty seat near the back and headed for it. "I'm Izuku Sukehiro. I'm here because the principal bribed me with toilets. Don't talk to me unless you got something important to say, and we'll get along fine." He sat down, put his feet up on the desk, and closed his eyes. The cigarette, still unlit, bobbed as he spoke. "Wake me up when the teacher gets here." Bakugo, still seething, looked like he wanted to murder Izuku. His hands sparked and smoked. "You think you're tough, you foreign piece of..." "Katsuki Bakugo," Izuku said, eyes still closed. "Explosion quirk, nitroglycerin sweat. Powerful, sure, but predictable. You rely on overwhelming force and intimidation against someone stronger than you, someone who won't back down. You're useless." He cracked one eye open. "Sit down, spiky bastard, before I shove that desk somewhere uncomfortable." Bakugo's face went red. He looked ready to attack. Consequences be damned when a yellow sleeping bag by the door rustled. "If you're going to fight, take it outside," a tired voice said. A man emerged from the sleeping bag, disheveled, exhausted looking, with a scarf wrapped around his neck. "I'm trying to sleep." "You're the teacher?" Izuku asked. "Unfortunately." The man stood up fully, revealing bloodshot eyes and the demeanor of someone who'd rather be anywhere else. "I'm Shota Aizawa, your homeroom teacher, and you're Izuku Sukehiro, the recommendation student who skipped the entrance exam because he was taking a dump." "It was a legendary dump," Izuku said. "Worthy of song." A few students snickered. Aizawa's expression didn't change. "Uh-huh. Well, Sukehiro, welcome to Class 1A. Try not to assault your classmates on day 1. "No promises," Aizawa sighed. "Great, another problem child." He addressed the whole class. "All right, listen up. Put on your gym uniforms and meet me outside. We're doing a quirk assessment test." The brown-haired girl raised her hand. "But sir, what about the entrance ceremony? The orientation?" "Waste of time," Aizawa said. "If you're here to become heroes, we need to see what you can do, not listen to speeches." He looked directly at Izuku. "Especially you, Sukehiro. Nezu's been talking you up like you're the second coming of All Might. Let's see if you're worth the hype. Izuku grinned. It wasn't a friendly grin. It was the grin of someone who enjoyed proving people wrong, or right, if it meant getting to show off. You want a demonstration, Teach? I'll give you one. But don't blame me when I make everyone else look bad. On the training field, Aizawa explained the rules. 8 physical tests, same as middle school, but students could use their quirks. Whoever came in last place would be expelled. Expelled? Several students shouted. UA has freedom to run its classes however it wants. Aizawa said, if you can't give your all, you don't belong here. Izuku lit his cigarette. Actually lit it this time because they were outside and he didn't give a damn. Sukehiro, Aizawa said, no smoking on school grounds. Expel me then, Izuku said, taking a long drag. See if I care. I'll just go back to my bridge. They stared at each other for a long moment. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. You're testing me. Maybe, or maybe I genuinely don't give a shit. Izuku blew out a stream of smoke. Your move, Teach. Aizawa could have activated his quirk, could have erased Izuku's dark matter and tried to force compliance. But something in the way this oversized teenager stood there, completely unbothered, radiating quiet menace, made him reconsider. Fine, Aizawa said, but when you collapse from lung cancer in 10 years, don't come crying to me. Deal. The first test was the softball throw. Bakugo went first, using an explosion to launch the ball 705.2 meters. He smirked at Izuku. Beat that, asshole. Izuku took the ball, coated it in darkness, visible now like black flames wrapping around the softball, and threw it. Not particularly hard, just a casual toss. The ball disappeared. Everyone blinked. Where'd it go? Someone asked. Aizawa checked his phone, which was linked to the measurement device. His eyes widened. 5.4 kilometers. What? Multiple students shouted. Izuku shrugged. Opened a portal. Threw it through. It came out 5 clicks away. He looked at Bakugo. That good enough, spiky bastard? Bakugo looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. That's cheating. It's called using my quirk creatively, Izuku said. Not my fault, you're too stupid to think beyond blow stuff up. The other tests went similarly. Grip strength, Izuku crushed the device. It measured up to 100 kilograms. He broke 300. Standing long jump, he jumped clear across the sandbox and landed on the other side of the field. 50-meter dash, he ran it in 3.4 seconds, using ki to predict the optimal path and darkness to reduce air resistance. By the end, the rankings were clear. Izuku Sukehiro, first place, by a mile. Literally, in some tests, Bakugo was 5th, fuming. A girl with a ponytail, Momo Yaoyorozu, the memories supplied, was 2nd. A boy with heterochromatic hair and eyes, half white, half red, was 3rd. Todoroki. Shoto Todoroki. All right, Aizawa said. The expulsion was a logical ruse to make you give your all. Figures, Izuku said. No way you'd expel someone on day 1. Too much paperwork. Aizawa glared at him. You're lucky you're right. Now get changed and head to your next class. And Sukehiro? Put out the cigarette. Izuku dropped it and crushed it under his boot. Whatever you say, Teach. The next few weeks at UA were an adjustment. Izuku quickly established himself as the most powerful, most intimidating, and most antisocial member of Class 1A. He showed up to class, did the work when he felt like it, and spent most of his free time either napping or occupying the bathrooms for extended periods. His classmates learned to avoid him. Except for a few brave or stupid souls. Bakugo tried to fight him 3 more times. Each time, Izuku put him down without even drawing his sword. Once, he caught Bakugo's punch with one hand and squeezed until the blonde boy's eyes watered. Weak, Izuku had said. Come back when you can actually hurt me. Todoroki approached him once, asking about his quirk. Izuku gave him a flat look. Why do you care? Your power is unusual, Todoroki said. It doesn't seem to follow normal quirk mechanics. Yeah, well, I'm unusual. Izuku stood up from his desk. You got something to say, half and half bastard, or are you just making small talk? Todoroki's eyes narrowed at the nickname. I'm simply observing that you might be strong enough to challenge Endeavor's son title. Endeavor? That fire hero? Izuku snorted. Don't care. I'm not here to compete with anyone. I'm here for the toilets and because Nezu won't leave me alone otherwise. That's it? No dreams of being the #1 hero? Izuku's scowl deepened. Being #1 sounds like a pain in the ass. Too much responsibility. Too many expectations. He grabbed his katana and slung it over his shoulder. I just want to be strong enough that nobody bothers me. That's it. But despite his antisocial tendencies, Izuku couldn't help but notice things about his classmates. The kid with green hair and a mutant frog quirk, Tsuyu Asui, was surprisingly competent. The invisible girl, Toru Hagakure, had potential if she learned to use her quirk strategically instead of just for pranks. The kid with the tail, Mashira Ojiro, had decent martial arts skills, weak, all of them, but not hopeless. During a combat training exercise with All Might, a massive blonde hero who Izuku immediately dubbed Muscles because look at the guy, seriously. Izuku was paired against Bakugo and some kid with a weird quirk that let him shoot tape from his elbows. All right, young Sukehiro. All Might boomed. Show us what you can do. The exercise was simple. Heroes versus villains. Capture the fake nuclear weapon or capture the opposing team. Izuku was on the villain team with a purple-haired kid who could brainwash people if they responded to him. Their opponents rushed the building. Bakugo led the charge, exploding through windows, screaming about how he'd crush the fake villain bastard. Izuku stood in the room with the fake weapon, hands in his pockets, cigarette in his mouth. Oi, purple kid, stay behind me. This'll be over quick. My name's Shinso, the purple-haired kid said. And are you seriously not going to do anything until they... Bakugo exploded through the door. Found you! You! Izuku moved. One step, one punch. Bakugo flew backward through the door he'd just come through, hit the opposite wall, and slumped down, unconscious. Get here! Shinso finished weakly. The tape kid rushed in, Mina firing tape at Izuku. I've got you! Izuku drew his sword. Dark magic, lightless slash. The tape disintegrated before it touched him. The slash continued, carving through the wall, the floor, part of the ceiling. The tape kid dove out of the way, avoiding being bisected by inches. Holy crap, he shouted. That could have killed me. I aimed above you, Izuku said. Relax. All Might's voice came through the speakers. Villain team wins! That was a very decisive young Sukehiro. Later, during the review, All Might looked concerned. Your power is incredible, my boy, but you need to show more restraint. In a real situation, you could seriously injure someone. Izuku shrugged. Then they shouldn't be so weak. Strength isn't everything, All Might said, his smile straining. A true hero must also have compassion, must know when to hold back, must, Izuku interrupted. You heroes love telling people what they must do. Here's what I must do. Take a dump. Excuse me. He walked out, leaving All Might standing there, deflated and confused. After class, the number one hero pulled Nezu aside. Are you sure about this student? He's powerful, yes, but his attitude is exactly what we need, Nezu said cheerfully. All Might, our students are talented, but many of them lack the drive to push beyond their limits. They're comfortable with their current strength. Sukehiro will change that. By threatening them? If necessary. Nezu sipped his tea. Sometimes the best teacher is fear. And sometimes the best motivation is watching someone so far ahead that you have no choice but to run faster just to keep them in sight. All Might frowned. He didn't like it, but he couldn't argue with Nezu's logic. The principal was rarely wrong about these things. The USJ incident happened 3 weeks into the semester. Class 1A was supposed to have a field trip to the unforeseen simulation joint, a massive training facility for disaster rescue scenarios. Aizawa led them there, along with All Might, who was supposed to come but had to cancel due to his time limit, though he didn't tell the students that. Izuku had been napping on the bus. The field trip sounded boring. Rescuing people from fake disasters? Where was the fun in that? He'd rather be fighting someone strong, pushing his limits, testing the full extent of his dark matter quirk. But when they arrived at the USJ, something felt wrong. Izuku's eyes opened. His key sense, which he'd been unconsciously using to monitor his surroundings, detected something. A lot of somethings. Hostile. Dangerous. Oi, teach, he said to Aizawa. We got company. What are you? Aizawa started, then stopped. The lights flickered. A massive portal of purple-black mist opened in the central plaza, and people started pouring out. Dozens of them. All with the look of criminals, villains, the dregs of society looking for trouble. Well, a figure said, stepping through. Pale blue hair, hands covering his face and body, a disturbing aura of decay. UA, students. Perfect. Aizawa's capture weapon deployed. 13, get the students out of here. It's a villain attack. The students panicked. Some screamed, some froze. Bakugo looked ready to fight. Todoroki's temperature dropped, ice forming on his right side. Izuku stood up from where he'd been sitting. cracked his neck. "For fuck's sake, can't a guy sleep?" Everyone looked at him. "Sukehiro," Aizawa said urgently, "get with the others. We're evacuating." "Evacuating?" Izuku interrupted. He drew his katana, darkness already swirling around it. "There's like 50 villains down there. Teach, you gonna fight them all alone?" "That's my job. You're students." "You." Izuku jumped, not toward the exit, toward the plaza, toward the villains. "Sukehiro!" Aizawa shouted, but it was too late. Izuku landed in the center of the plaza with enough force to crack the concrete. The impact sent out a shock wave that made several villains stumble. He stood up slowly, rolling his shoulders, and looked around at the small army surrounding him. "All right, you extras," he said, his voice carrying across the USJ. "You woke me up from my nap. You interrupted what could have been a very productive sleep session, and now you're going to pay for it with blood." The villain with the hand-covered face, Shigaraki, Izuku's key sense told him, unstable, dangerous, childish, laughed. "One student? You sent one student down here? Are you stupid or—" Izuku's sword blurred. Dark magic, lightless slash. The arc of darkness carved through 5 villains before they could even react. They collapsed, unconscious or worse, their bodies bearing deep cuts that somehow didn't bleed. The darkness had cauterized the wounds instantly. Silence. "Who's next?" Izuku asked. The villains attacked. All of them. A tidal wave of quirks and violence, ranging from fire to ice to mutation to emitter types that Izuku didn't even recognize. It didn't matter. His key sense read every attack before it landed. He dodged a column of flame by tilting his head, deflected a spike of ice with the flat of his blade, caught a villain's punch and broke the man's arm with a casual twist, all while walking forward, slowly, methodically, cutting down anyone who got close. "Weak," he said, bisecting a villain who tried to grab him from behind. "Weak, weak, weak. Is this the best you got?" A massive villain, easily 8 feet tall, built like a tank with stone skin, charged at him. "I'll crush you, brat!" Izuku didn't even use his sword. He punched the villain in the gut. The sound was like a boulder hitting a wall. The stone-skinned villain's eyes went white and he collapsed, coughing blood. I said weak. Izuku looked up at where Shigaraki stood, watching from a distance. "Send me something challenging, you hand fetish bastard. This is boring." Shigaraki scratched his neck frantically. "Boring? Boring! Kurogiri, send the Nomu!" The mist villain, Kurogiri, hesitated. "Are you sure? We were supposed to save it for... Send the Nomu!" A portal opened, and something walked through. It was huge. Easily 9 feet tall, with exposed brain matter, a beak-like mouth, and eyes that held no intelligence whatsoever. Just instinct. Just violence. Its muscles bulged grotesquely, and even without key sense, Izuku could tell this thing was built for one purpose: killing. The Nomu looked at Izuku. Izuku looked back. "Now we're talking," Izuku said, grinning. His aura flared, darkness radiating from his body like heat waves. The remaining conscious villains backed away. Some of them ran. The sheer pressure of Izuku's presence was suffocating. The Nomu rushed him. Fast, way faster than something that size should move. Its fist came down like a meteor. Izuku blocked with his sword. The impact created a shockwave that shattered windows throughout the USJ. The floor beneath Izuku's feet cracked and cratered, but he didn't budge. "Shock absorption and super regeneration," Izuku noted, his key sense reading the Nomu's abilities. "Plus some kind of strength enhancement. Cute." He pushed back, forcing the Nomu's fist away. "But let's see how you handle this." He swung his sword upward. Dark magic, dark cloaked avidya slash. The blade, wrapped in layers of concentrated darkness, carved through the Nomu's arm. The limb fell to the ground, severed cleanly. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the arm dissolved into nothing, consumed by the darkness that had cut it. The Nomu stared at its missing arm, tried to regenerate it, failed. The darkness had erased it on a fundamental level. "Oh?" Izuku said. "Can't regenerate that? Good to know." The Nomu roared, a sound like metal scraping on metal, and attacked with its remaining arm. Izuku dodged, reading its movements through ki, and countered with a slash across its chest. More darkness, more dissolution. "Come on!" Izuku shouted. "Is that all you got? Surpass your limits. Give me a real fight." The driven by whatever programming or instinct controlled it, went berserk. It attacked with everything. Punches, kicks, headbutts, trying to grab Izuku and crush him. Each attack was powerful enough to kill a normal person instantly. Izuku avoided them all. His movements were minimal, efficient, almost lazy. Step to the left, duck, parry, counter. He was reading the Nomu like a book written in large print. Boring, he said. Then his aura expanded. The darkness around him grew so thick that it became visible to everyone watching. His classmates at the entrance, Aizawa fighting villains at the edge of the plaza, even Shigaraki and Kurogiri. It felt like gravity had increased tenfold, like the air itself had become heavy. Students fell to their knees. Villains passed out from the pressure alone. "You're strong," Izuku said to the Nomu. "I'll give you that. Stronger than most, but you're just a puppet. No will, no drive, no limit to surpass." He raised his sword high. "Let me show you what real power looks like." The darkness condensed around his blade, forming an edge so black it seemed to cut through reality itself. Dark magic dimension slash. He swung. The slash that erupted from his sword didn't just cut the Nomu. It cut space. It cut the USJ dome above them. It cut the clouds in the sky beyond that. A perfect line of severance that extended for what had to be a mile, maybe more. The Nomu was split in half vertically. But unlike before, it didn't regenerate. It couldn't. The dimensional cut had severed it on every level: physical, cellular, metaphysical. The two halves fell apart and didn't move. Izuku flicked the blood off his sword and sheathed it. He looked up at the massive gash in the USJ's ceiling, at the sunlight streaming through, at the destruction he'd caused. "Oops," he said. "That might have been overkill." Shigaraki stood frozen, staring at the dead Nomu, at the casual devastation. That's impossible. The Nomu was designed to fight All Might. It was supposed to be unstoppable. "Designed wrong, then," Izuku said. He started walking toward Shigaraki. "Now, you want to explain why you assholes interrupted my nap? Or do I have to beat it out of you?" Kurogiri warped in front of Shigaraki. "We need to leave. Now! But now, Tomura!" A portal opened behind them. Shigaraki looked at Izuku one last time, his visible eye wide with something between fear and obsession. You're a cheat code. An unfair, broken, game-ruining cheat code." He scratched his neck so hard it bled. "I'll find a way to beat you. I swear I'll—" Yeah, Izuku said, waving dismissively. "Get in line. Everyone wants to beat me. None of them can." He pointed his sword at Shigaraki. "Next time you wake me up, I'll cut the planet in half." "Piss off." The portal closed. Shigaraki and Kurogiri vanished. The remaining conscious villains, all three of them, immediately surrendered. Izuku looked around at the destruction, the unconscious villains, the dead Nomu, the gaping hole in the ceiling. Well, shit, Nezu's gonna be pissed about the property damage. His classmates finally worked up the courage to approach. Kirishima, the redhead with the hardening quirk, was the first. "Dude, that was the most manly thing I've ever seen." "Manly?" Izuku raised an eyebrow. "I just killed a guy. Several guys, actually. They were villains. Still killed them." Aizawa limped over, his capture weapon torn, his face bruised. "Sukehiro, did you seriously just bisect a high-end Nomu and cut through the building?" "Yep." "And you couldn't have done that before it destroyed half the plaza?" I wanted to see what it could do." Izuku shrugged. "Turns out, not much." Aizawa looked like he wanted to yell, to lecture, to do something, but he was too tired, too injured, and frankly too impressed. "Just don't do it again without warning. No promises." All Might arrived 2 minutes later, bursting through the entrance in his hero form, ready to save everyone. He stopped short when he saw the scene. The defeated villains, the destroyed Nomu. Izuku standing in the middle of it all, smoking a cigarette, completely unbothered. "Young Sukehiro, what happened here? Villains attacked. I defended myself. They lost." Izuku blew out smoke. "Oh, and I need to use the bathroom. That fight really got my bowels moving. Where's the nearest toilet?" All Might just stared. Later, much later, after the police took statements and the media swarmed the school, and Nezu had to explain to various government officials why his recommendation student had killed several villains and a bioengineered monster, Izuku sat in the principal's office. "That was quite the performance," Nezu said, sipping his tea. "You've made quite an impression." "I'm in trouble, aren't I?" "On the contrary, the villains attacked first. You defended yourself and your classmates. Legally, you're in the clear." Nezu's eyes gleamed, "Though I would appreciate if you avoided bisecting our facilities in the future. I'll try." "See that you do. Now, on to other matters. The sports festival is coming up in 2 weeks. It's UA's biggest event, broadcast nationwide, where students showcase their abilities to pro heroes and agencies. I assume you'll be participating?" Izuku thought about it. Will there be strong opponents? The strongest students from all 3 hero courses. Plus, historically, the festival has attracted attention from villains, media, and scouts alike. So, potential for good fights? Extremely high potential, Izuku grinned. Then yeah, I'm in, but I'm winning the whole thing. Confident. Realistic. Izuku stood up. If that's all, I got a toilet calling my name. One more thing, Nezu said. Your classmates are talking about you. Some are afraid, some are in awe, but all of them now understand the gap between their level and yours. Good. Maybe they'll train harder, or they'll despair. Then they're weak and don't belong here. Izuku headed for the door. Only the strong survive in this world, Principal. The sooner they learn that, the better. After he left, Nezu sat back in his chair, paws steepled. Fascinating, he murmured. Absolutely fascinating. I wonder what you'll do next, Izuku Sukehiro. The 2 weeks leading up to the sports festival were intense. The USJ incident had put Class 1A in the spotlight, and not in a good way. Media trucks camped outside the school gates. Reporters shouted questions at students. Some people called them lucky. Others called them weak for needing rescue. Izuku ignored all of it. He trained in the gym, pushing his body and his dark matter quirk to new limits. He sparred with anyone willing, which wasn't many, after he put Bakugo in the nurse's office twice in 1 week. You need to hold back, Recovery Girl told him after healing Bakugo's 3rd set of broken ribs. I am holding back, Izuku said. If I wasn't, he'd be dead. That's not reassuring. Wasn't trying to reassure you. His classmates kept their distance, mostly. A few tried to befriend him. Kirishima, the redhead, kept calling him manly and asking for training tips. Kaminari, the electric blonde kid, thought Izuku was super cool in a scary way. Mina, the pink alien girl, tried to make him smile once. Failed spectacularly. The only person who didn't seem afraid of him was Todoroki. The half-and-half bastard approached Izuku one day after class, his expression serious. Sukehiro, I need to ask you something. Izuku didn't look up from cleaning his katana. What? At the sports festival, I'm going to win using only my ice. I won't use my fire. I can't. Why not? Because it's his power. Todoroki's left side, the fire side, clenched. My father Endeavor, the number 2 hero, he had a quirk marriage, bred my mother and me like we were livestock, trying to create the perfect hero to surpass All Might. This fire, it's his legacy, his curse. I refuse to use it. Izuku finally looked up. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard? Todoroki's eyes widened. What? Your power is your power, Izuku said flatly. Doesn't matter where it came from. Doesn't matter who gave it to you or why. It's yours now. Refusing to use it because of some daddy issues is just weak. You don't understand. Izuku stood up, towering over Todoroki. I understand plenty. You're letting your past control your future. You're handicapping yourself because you're scared of what using that fire means. He poked Todoroki in the chest, right over his heart. Scared you'll become like him. Scared you'll prove him right. Todoroki's breath hitched. Here's the thing, half-and-half bastard. Power is neutral. It's not good or evil. It's what you do with it that matters. Izuku's scowl softened, just slightly. If you face me at the sports festival with only half your strength, I'll beat you down so hard you'll wish you'd never been born, and then I'll drag you back up and beat you down again, because you'll be wasting potential, and I hate wasted potential. Todoroki was quiet for a long moment. Then, what if I can't control it? Then you train until you can. Surpass your limits. That's what being strong means. Is that what you do? Surpass your limits? Izuku grinned. Every damn day. And you know what? It hurts. It's exhausting. Sometimes I wonder if it's worth it. He grabbed his katana and slung it over his shoulder. But then I get stronger and stronger, and I realize there's no ceiling, no limit. Just me, pushing forward, becoming more than I was yesterday. He looked Todoroki dead in the eyes. You got that kind of drive in you, kid? Or are you going to stay weak forever? Todoroki didn't answer, but something in his expression changed. Hardened. I'll see you at the festival, he finally said. You better bring your fire, Izuku called after him, or I'll kill you. Actually kill you. He probably didn't mean it. Probably. The day of the sports festival arrived with fanfare and explosions. Literally. Bakugo set off fireworks at 6 in the morning, waking up half the dorms. Izuku kicked his door open. Spiky bastard! I'm gonna murder you! Try it! Asshole! They fought in the common room for 5 minutes before Aizawa showed up in his sleeping bag and used his erasure quirk to shut them both down. Save it for the festival. And Sukehiro put out the cigarette. I wasn't even smoking. Yet. Put it out. The stadium was massive, easily held 50,000 people, all cheering, waving flags, holding signs. Some signs supported specific students. Some supported classes. One sign just said, Sukehiro is scary, in big bold letters. Izuku approved. Present Mike, the loudmouth announcer with the voice quirk, introduced the classes. And now, representing Class 1A, the students who survived the USJ villain attack. The crowd went wild. Cheering, screaming, chanting. The energy was electric. LED by the man who single-handedly defeated a high-end Nomu. The cheers got louder. The crowd erupted, half in excitement, half in fear. Izuku walked out onto the field, hands in his pockets, cigarette in his mouth, katana on his hip. He looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Such enthusiasm. Present Mike shouted. Now, for the student pledge, we have the first place finisher from the entrance exam. Oh wait, Sukehiro didn't take the exam. The first place finisher from Aizawa's assessment test. Also, Sukehiro! Kid, you're on a roll. Get up here. Izuku sighed and walked to the podium. He looked out at the crowd, at his classmates, at the other hero course students glaring at him with jealousy and determination. He grabbed the microphone. Listen up. I don't care about most of you. You're weak, you're slow, and you're not worth my time. The crowd went silent. But if any of you think you can beat me, come try. I'll be waiting. And when I crush you, maybe, just maybe, you'll learn what it means to surpass your limits. He dropped the microphone and walked off stage. Present Mike picked it up nervously. Well, that was certainly a pledge. Let's get started with the first event. The first event was an obstacle course, 4 kilometers around the stadium, filled with traps, robots, and various hazards designed to test mobility, strategy, and quirk usage. Midnight, the R-rated hero acting as chief referee, cracked her whip. Begin. Thousands of students rushed forward, immediately bottlenecking at the first gate. Shoving, pushing, using quirks to get ahead, Izuku walked. Just walked. Casually, and when he reached the bottleneck, he drew his katana and cut through the wall instead. Shortcut, he said, strolling through the hole he'd made. He just made his own path. Present Mike screamed. Is that allowed? The only rule is to finish the course, Midnight said, grinning. How you do it is up to you. The first obstacle was a pit filled with massive robots, the same ones from the entrance exam. 0-pointers, 3-pointers, all activation at once, blocking the path. Students scattered, some trying to fight, others trying to sneak around. Izuku walked up to a 0-pointer, looked up at it. Move. The robot didn't move, obviously. It was a robot. Fine. Izuku's aura flared. Dark magic black hole. He thrust his palm forward and a sphere of absolute darkness formed in front of the robot. The machine was pulled toward it, metal groaning, then compressed into a ball the size of a basketball. Izuku caught it, tossed it aside, and kept walking. He did this to every robot in his path. By the time other students arrived, there was a cleared lane of destruction and compressed robot corpses. Sukehiro has cleared the first obstacle in under a minute, Present Mike shouted. The gap between him and second place, currently Todoroki, is already insurmountable. The second obstacle was the fall, a series of platforms connected by tight ropes, suspended over a massive pit. One wrong step and you'd fall into a safety net, but still you'd be out of the race. Izuku looked at the tight ropes, looked at the pit, then jumped. He fell. Students gasped, the crowd screamed, then darkness erupted from his body, forming a platform midair. He landed on it, created another one, essentially walked on air across the entire obstacle. He's flying! Can he fly? I thought his quirk was darkness. It is, Midnight said, equally shocked. He's using his darkness as solid constructs. That's incredibly advanced quirk control. Izuku landed on the other side and kept going. Behind him, Todoroki and Bakugo were fighting for second place. Ice and explosions clashing in a display that would have been impressive if Izuku wasn't so far ahead. The third obstacle was a minefield. Literally, mines planted across an open field designed to slow students down. Izuku stopped at the edge, looked at the field. Well, this is annoying. Then he raised his sword. Dark magic, death thrust. He thrust his blade forward and a concentrated beam of darkness shot out, detonating every mine in a perfectly straight line across the field. Explosions went off like fireworks, clearing a path. Izuku walked through the smoke. Too easy. He crossed the finish line 5 minutes before anyone else. The crowd was stunned into silence. Then they erupted, cheering, screaming his name, waving those Sukehiro is scary signs with renewed enthusiasm. Present Mike had lost his voice. He just pointed at the scoreboard. First place, Izuku Sukehiro. Second place, Shoto Todoroki, 4 minutes behind. Third place, Katsuki Bakugo, 4.5 minutes behind. Well, Midnight said into her microphone, that was decisive. Moving on to the second event. The second event was the cavalry battle. Students formed teams of 4, with the person in front wearing a headband worth points based on their placement in the first event. The goal, steal headbands from other teams while protecting your own. Izuku's headband was worth 10 million points, because of course it was. Anyone want to team up with me? He asked his classmates. Silence. Everyone looked away. Even Kirishima, who usually worshipped the ground Izuku walked on, seemed hesitant. Come on, I'm not that scary. You literally threatened to cut the planet in half, Kaminari whispered. That was a joke, mostly. Finally, 3 people stepped forward. Shinso, the brainwashing kid from the entrance exam. Hatsume, a support course student with crazy eyes and crazier inventions. And Tokoyami, the bird-headed kid with the shadow quirk. Why are you guys helping me? Izuku asked. You're strong, Tokoyami said simply, and I want to see how my dark shadow compares to your darkness. I want to test my babies on a real battlefield, Hatsume said, holding up various gadgets. Shinso just shrugged. You're interesting, and I owe you for the USJ. Izuku grinned. All right, here's the plan. We stand in the middle and let them come to us. Anyone tries to take the headband, we crush them. Simple. That's not a plan, Shinso said. That's just brute force. You got a problem with brute force? No. The cavalry battle began. Immediately, every team rushed Izuku's group. Todoroki's team, Bakugo's team, teams from other classes. Everyone wanted the 10 million points. Izuku stood in the center of his formation, hands in his pockets, bored. Tokoyami, left side. Shinso, anyone gets close, brainwash them. Hatsume, do your thing. Tokoyami's dark shadow lashed out, batting away a team that got too close. Shinso called out to an approaching student. Hey, stop! The student responded, got brainwashed, and walked away. Hatsume deployed a smokescreen, blinding half the battlefield. And Izuku, he just stood there. When Todoroki's ice wave came at them, he shattered it with a pulse of darkness. When Bakugo flew overhead, trying to grab the headband, Izuku swatted him out of the air like a fly. This is boring, Izuku said. Someone give me a challenge! Todoroki, frustrated, unleashed a massive ice attack that froze half the arena. Izuku's aura expanded, melting the ice before it touched his team. Use the fire, half and half bastard, Izuku shouted. Stop dicking around. Todoroki's hands trembled. The fire wanted to come out. He could feel it, but he couldn't. If you don't use it, I'll come over there and beat it out of you, Izuku threatened. That did it. Todoroki's left side erupted in flames. Fire and ice working together, creating a localized storm of temperature extremes. He launched another attack, this one far more powerful. Desperate, Izuku blocked it with his sword. The clash of fire, ice, and darkness created a shockwave that knocked over half the teams in the arena. Now that's what I'm talking about, Izuku laughed. Keep going. Surpass your limits. The timer ran out. Final scores: first place, Izuku Sukehiro's team, 10 million points untouched. Second place, Shoto Todoroki's team, 615 points. Third place, Katsuki Bakugo's team, 395 points. Izuku yawned. All right, what's next? The final event was one-on-one tournament battles. 16 students facing off in single combat until only one remained. Midnight spun the wheel to determine matchups. The bracket appeared on the screen. Izuku Sukehiro versus Hitoshi Shinso Shoto Todoroki versus Hanta Sero Katsuki Bakugo versus Eijiro Kirishima, and so on. I'm fighting you first? Shinso asked Izuku. That's not fair. Life ain't fair, Izuku said. Give it your best shot anyway. Their match was first. They walked onto the stage, the crowd cheering, Present Mike hyping them up. All right, kid, Izuku said. Try to brainwash me. I'll even make it easy. Ask me a question. Shinso hesitated. Are you serious? Izuku opened his mouth to respond, then stopped, grinned. Nice try, but I ain't that stupid. He drew his sword. Come on, use your quirk. Show me what you got. Shinso tried, called out questions, provocations, anything to get Izuku to verbally respond. But Izuku just stood there, silent, waiting. Finally, Shinso charged physically, trying to get close enough to force a response. Izuku sidestepped, grabbed him by the collar, and tossed him out of bounds. "You got potential," Izuku said, "but you rely too much on your quirk. Learn to fight without it, then come back." Shinso, sitting in the grass outside the ring, looked up at him. "You didn't even use your quirk. Didn't need to. You're not ready for that yet." Izuku offered a hand. "Train harder, surpass your limits. Next time, you might actually make me try." Shinso took the hand, and for the first time in his life, someone looked at him at his villainous quirk and saw potential instead of fear. The other matches went as expected. Todoroki froze Sero instantly. Bakugo barely beat Kirishima after the redhead's hardening started to crack. Tokoyami advanced. So did a girl named Ibarra from Class 1B. And then came the match everyone was waiting for. Todoroki versus Izuku. Semifinals. The Ice and Fire Prodigy versus the overwhelming powerhouse. They faced each other on the stage. The crowd was silent with anticipation. "You brought the fire?" Izuku asked. Todoroki's left side ignited. "You told me to." "Good." Izuku drew his sword. "Now let's see if you can actually use it." Midnight started the match. "Begin." Todoroki attacked immediately, ice and fire working in tandem. He created a glacier on one side, a wall of flame on the other, trying to box Izuku in. Izuku walked through the fire. It didn't even singe his uniform. "Temperature don't mean shit to darkness, kid. Try harder." Todoroki gritted his teeth and unleashed everything. Ice spikes, flame torrents, alternating attacks designed to keep Izuku off balance. Izuku dodged some, blocked others with his sword, let a few hit him just to show they couldn't hurt him. "Come on. Is that all you got? You're Endeavor's son, right? Show me why that bastard is number 2. Something in Todoroki snapped. The fire exploded outward, a massive inferno that covered half the stage. The heat was so intense that students in the front row had to back away. Izuku stood in the center of it, completely unbothered. Better, but still not enough. He raised his sword. Dark magic, dark cloaked black blade. The darkness wrapped around his katana condensed, forming an edge so sharp and dense it looked like a tear in reality. He swung, not at Todoroki, but at the fire itself. The flames split, parted like a curtain. The darkness devoured them, leaving nothing behind. Todoroki stared in disbelief. "That's impossible." Izuku was in front of him. When did he move? How did the flat of the dark cloaked blade hit Todoroki in the chest? Not cutting, just pushing. But the force behind it was immense. Todoroki flew backward, crashed through the boundary of the ring, and kept going. He hit the stadium wall with a crater-forming impact. The crowd went silent, then erupted. "Todoroki is out of bounds!" Midnight announced. "Sukehiro wins!" Izuku walked over to where Todoroki lay, groaning, probably with a few broken ribs. He offered a hand. "Good fight, kid. You used your fire. That's all I wanted to see." Todoroki took the hand, wincing. I lost." "You fought at full power. That's winning in my book." Izuku pulled him up. "Keep training. Next time you might actually make me try harder than 5%. That was 5%? Closer to 3, actually. Izuku grinned at Todoroki's horrified expression. "Now get to recovery, girl. And seriously, good job. You surpassed your limits today." As Todoroki was carried off on a stretcher, Izuku looked up at the VIP box where Endeavor sat. The number 2 hero was glaring at him, flames flickering around his face. Izuku gave him the middle finger. The crowd lost their minds. The final match was Izuku versus Bakugo. The spiky bastard had fought his way through the bracket with pure rage and explosions, screaming about how he'd crush Izuku, how he'd prove he was the strongest, how he'd... Yeah, Izuku said as they faced off. "We've heard it all before. You gonna talk or fight?" "I'm gonna kill you!" Bakugo screamed, launching himself forward with explosions. The match lasted 15 seconds. Bakugo threw his strongest attack, a point-blank explosion designed to vaporize targets. Izuku caught his wrist. The explosion went off, smoke and fire everywhere. When it cleared, Izuku was standing there, unharmed, still holding Bakugo's wrist. "Weak," he squeezed. Bakugo screamed. Then Izuku threw him not out of bounds, but straight up. Bakugo flew into the air, flailing. Izuku appeared above him. Nobody saw him move, he just was there, and he brought his foot down on Bakugo's back, spiking him into the ground with enough force to create a crater. Bakugo didn't get up. "Sukehiro wins," Midnight announced. "We have our champion." The crowd went absolutely insane, chanting his name, throwing their signs, screaming their approval. Izuku looked around at all of it and felt nothing. No pride, no excitement, just the satisfaction of a job done. "Oi, Midnight," he called. "Where's the trophy presentation?" "In a few minutes. We need to." "Cool, I gotta take a massive dump. Be right back." He walked off stage, leaving a stunned crowd, unconscious opponents, and the number one hero, All Might, who'd been watching from the commentary box, wondering what the hell had just happened to his school. Later, standing on the podium with a gold medal around his neck and a cigarette in his mouth, Izuku addressed the crowd. "I know you all expected some big inspiring speech about heroism or whatever, but honestly, I'm just here for the toilets and the fights. So, thanks for the entertainment. Train harder, surpass your limits, and someone feed Spiky Bastard. He looks anemic." Bakugo, standing on the third place podium with his hands restrained because he'd tried to attack the officials, screamed incoherently. All Might took the microphone from Izuku. "Well, that was certainly unique. Young Sukehiro has shown us today what it means to push beyond, to never give up, to always strive for." "Muscles," Izuku interrupted. "You're doing the thing where you ramble. Stop." The number one hero's smile twitched. "I am trying to inspire the youth, my boy." "You're boring them." "Look," Izuku pointed at the crowd. Half of them were on their phones. "Wrap it up." All Might did, in fact, wrap it up, because arguing with Izuku Sukehiro was a losing battle, and even the symbol of peace knew when to retreat. That night, back in the dorms, Izuku's classmates threw an impromptu celebration. Someone brought snacks, someone else brought drinks. Kirishima tried to get Izuku to join. "Come on, man. You won the whole festival. You should celebrate." Izuku, lying on the common room couch with his sword across his lap, shrugged. "I did what I was supposed to do. Nothing special." "Nothing special," Kaminari shouted. "Dude, you destroyed everyone." "You made it look easy." "It was easy." The room went quiet, not uncomfortable quiet, just accepting quiet. Because of course it was easy for him, he was Izuku Sukehiro. He was on a different level. Todoroki approached, his left side bandaged from the earlier fight. "Sukehiro, thank you." Izuku looked up. "For what?" "For pushing me to use my fire, for showing me that power isn't inherently evil." Todoroki bowed slightly. "I'm going to keep training, and someday, I'll surpass you." Izuku grinned. "Now that's what I like to hear." "Good luck, half and half bastard. You're gonna need it." The celebration continued around him, students laughing, talking, enjoying their youth. Izuku watched them for a moment, these kids who were so much weaker than him, but tried so hard anyway. Maybe this whole school thing wasn't completely terrible. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Impressive display at the sports festival. The League of Villains is watching you, Sukehiro. Next time we meet, I'll have something that can actually challenge you." Shigaraki. Izuku deleted the message. "Bring it on, hand fetish bastard. I'll be waiting." He closed his eyes, lit a fresh cigarette, and let the sounds of his classmates wash over him. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new fights, new limits to surpass. But tonight he'd rest. Because even the strongest need to recharge sometimes, and maybe, just maybe, he'd start thinking of these idiots as more than just weak extras. Maybe they were becoming something else. Something almost like... Nah, he wasn't that sentimental. But still, it was nice not being alone anymore. The days after the sports festival brought unexpected changes to UA and to Izuku's life specifically. Hero agencies flooded the school with internship offers. Over 4,000 for Izuku alone. Most were from top 10 heroes wanting to study his quirk to understand how he'd become so powerful. Izuku threw them all in the trash. "Not interested," he told Aizawa during homeroom when his teacher asked about his choice. "You have to pick someone, Sukehiro. Internships are mandatory." "Then I pick nobody. I'll train on my own." Aizawa sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "That's not how this works. You need professional hero supervision. Someone who can what? Teach me?" Izuku leaned back in his chair. "Teach, no offense, but nobody in the top 10 can handle my power level. They just get in my way." It was true, and Aizawa knew it. The problem was that UA's regulations required students to intern under a licensed pro hero. No exceptions, until Nezu intervened. "I've found a solution," the principal announced, appearing in the classroom doorway with his usual unsettling cheerfulness. "Sukehiro will intern under me." Everyone stared. "You're not a pro hero," Aizawa pointed out. No, but I am a licensed educator with special permissions to supervise unique cases, and Sukehiro is certainly unique. Nezu's eyes gleamed. Besides, I have some interesting projects that could benefit from his particular skill set. Izuku raised an eyebrow. Projects? Nothing too strenuous, just some theoretical applications of your dark matter quirk that I'd like to explore. In exchange, you'll have access to UA's advanced training facilities and complete freedom to develop your abilities as you see fit. And the toilets? Naturally, sold. While Izuku's classmates dispersed to various agencies, Bakugo to Best Genus, Todoroki to his father's agency despite his protests, Kirishima to a street-level hero in Hosu, Izuku spent his internship week doing what he did best, pushing his limits. Nezu's projects turned out to be elaborate scenarios designed to test the full extent of dark matter's capabilities. Could Izuku's darkness nullify other quirks permanently? No, but it could suppress them temporarily. Could he create stable portals for transportation? Yes, but they required intense concentration. Could he manipulate the darkness to form complex constructs beyond simple platforms and blades? This last question led to an interesting discovery. Izuku stood in one of UA's reinforced training rooms, the kind designed to withstand All Might's punches. Nezu watched from behind a protective barrier, taking notes. Try creating something intricate, the principal suggested. Not just a weapon or a shield, something that requires fine control. Izuku frowned, extending his hand. Darkness flowed from his palm, coiling in the air. Usually he shaped it into simple forms, blades, spheres, walls. But intricate? He thought about the memories of his past life, the captain he used to be, the Black Bulls squad, his friends, his comrades, his... The darkness shifted, forming a small bird, perfectly detailed down to individual feathers made of shadow. It flapped its wings, actually flew around the room, then dissolved back into formless dark. Nezu's pen stopped moving. Fascinating. The emotional component seems to enhance your control. When you thought about something meaningful, your quirk responded with precision you haven't shown before. Emotional component? Izuku dismissed the darkness. What are you, a therapist? I'm a scientist, and I notice patterns. Your power grows stronger when you're protecting others, as evidenced by the USJ incident. It manifests more creatively when you're emotionally engaged, as we just witnessed. The question is, why? Izuku didn't answer. He didn't want to think about emotions, about connections, about the fragments of two lives warring in his head. One life of loneliness and bullying, the other of camaraderie and purpose. Let's just keep training, he said. They did. For hours. Izuku created constructs, tested new techniques, pushed his dark matter to limits he hadn't explored. By the end of the day, he developed 3 new abilities. Dark magic. Dimension slash, enhanced. Now he could control where the slash ended, preventing collateral damage. Dark magic, black cocoon. A defensive technique that wrapped him in layers of darkness, protecting against almost any attack. Dark magic, dark cloaked lightless barrage. Multiple slashes of darkness fired in rapid succession, each one capable of cutting through steel. Impressive progress, Nezu said as they concluded the session. At this rate, you'll surpass even the top heroes within a year. That's the plan, Izuku said, lighting a cigarette despite Nezu's disapproving look. Though I gotta say, Principal, this internship thing isn't as boring as I thought. High praise coming from you. Don't let it go to your head. On the 4th day of the internship week, something happened that changed everything. Izuku was in Hosu City, sent by Nezu to observe real hero work at a disaster site. A building had collapsed and several pro heroes were coordinating rescue efforts. Izuku's job was to watch and learn. He was bored out of his mind. This is stupid, he muttered, watching heroes dig through rubble. Why am I even? His key sense flared. Danger, close. Multiple sources of hostile intent converging on the city, and one source in particular that felt wrong, twisted, like it was trying to eat everything around it. The hell? Izuku turned toward the sensation, his instincts screaming at him to move. Then he saw the smoke rising from the commercial district. Fires. Screaming. And a text from Nezu. Villain attack in Hosu. Multiple Nomu spotted. Pro heroes engaged. Do not intervene. This is not your fight. Izuku read the message, deleted it, and started running toward the chaos because screw regulations. Someone strong was there. Someone who might actually give him a challenge. The commercial district was a war zone. 3 Nomu, not as strong as the one from USJ, but still dangerous, were tearing through buildings. Pro heroes fought them, struggling to contain the damage, and in the center of it all, standing in an alley with a massive sword and a manic grin, was the hero killer, Stain. Izuku's key sense locked onto him immediately. This guy was different. Not overwhelmingly powerful, but focused. Driven. Every movement precise, every strike intentional. Interesting. Stain was fighting 3 heroes at once, some nobody Izuku didn't recognize. The hero killer was winning, his blade coated in blood, his quirk activating to paralyze his opponents. Fake heroes, Stain hissed. All of you, corrupted by money and fame, only all might is worthy. Only. Oi! Izuku interrupted, walking into the alley. You the asshole who's been killing heroes? Stain turned, his eyes narrowing. A student from UA? He licked blood off his blade, his quirk activating on himself briefly before fading. Perfect. Another fake hero in training. I ain't a hero, Izuku said, drawing his katana. Darkness coiled around it immediately. I'm just a guy who likes fighting strong opponents, and you look like you might be fun. Stain charged. Fast, way faster than his injured appearance suggested. His sword came down in an overhead strike designed to split Izuku's skull. Izuku blocked with his katana. The clash sent sparks flying. Not bad. But Stain's knee came up, aimed at Izuku's gut. Izuku twisted, avoiding it, and countered with an elbow that Stain barely dodged. You're skilled, Stain admitted, circling. But skill without conviction is meaningless. What do you fight for, boy? Myself, Izuku said. That enough for you? Selfish, like all the others. Stain lunged again, feinting left before striking right. His blade grazed Izuku's arm, drawing blood. The moment Stain's tongue touched the blood, Izuku felt it, paralysis spreading through his body. A quirk that froze his muscles locked him in place. Gotcha, Stain said, raising his sword for a killing blow. Another fake, cut down. Darkness exploded from Izuku's body. The sheer force of it shattered the paralysis, broke Stain's quirk, and sent the hero killer flying backward into a wall. Did you seriously think that'd work on me? Izuku growled, moving his limbs freely. My darkness eats quirks, remember? Can't be paralyzed if the energy trying to paralyze me gets devoured. Stain coughed, blood trickling from his mouth. Impossible. My blood curdle always works on normal people. I ain't normal. Izuku pointed his sword at Stain. Now, you gonna keep fighting or are you done? Stain stood, swaying but determined. I'll never stop, not until all fake heroes are purged. Not until... Yeah, cool story. Izuku's aura flared, his killing intent washing over the alley like a physical force. But here's the thing, you're strong, you got conviction. Hell, I respect the fact you're willing to die for your beliefs. He took a step forward, but you're wasting your potential killing small-timers. If you really want to change hero society, go after the big guys. Go after the top 10. Prove your point where it matters. Stain's eyes widened. You agree with me? Hell no. I think your ideology is dumb as shit. Heroes, fake or real, at least they try to protect people. You just kill. Izuku's scowl deepened. But I respect your strength, so I'm giving you 2 choices. Surrender and go to prison like a man, or keep fighting and I'll cut you down right here. Stain laughed. It was a broken, bitter sound. You think I fear death? I welcome it. My message will spread regardless. He charged one final time, pouring everything into a desperate strike. Izuku didn't use his quirk, didn't use darkness or magic or any of his techniques. Just pure swordsmanship, reading Stain's movements through ki, and countered with a precision strike to the hero killer's wrist. Stain's sword clattered to the ground, his arm hung limp, temporarily paralyzed from the nerve strike. You lose, Izuku said simply. Stain collapsed to his knees. How are you so strong? I surpass my limits every day. You should try it sometime. Izuku sheathed his sword. Now stay down before I change my mind about letting you live. Pro heroes arrived moments later, including Endeavor. Drawn by the commotion, they found Izuku standing over the defeated hero killer, surrounded by paralyzed heroes who were just starting to regain movement. Sukehiro? Endeavor's flames flared. What are you doing here? This area was supposed to be evacuated. I was observing, Izuku said. This guy attacked. I defended myself. He lost. He gestured at Stain. You're welcome, by the way. Endeavor looked like he wanted to argue, to assert his authority, but the evidence was clear. The hero killer, one of the most wanted villains in Japan, was unconscious and defeated. By a student, the media was going to have a field day with this. Back at UA, Nezu was waiting in his office when Izuku returned. The The principal's expression was unreadable. You ignored my orders, Nezu said. Yep. You engaged a dangerous villain without backup. Yep. You could have been killed, but I wasn't. Izuku sat down across from Nezu. Look, Principal, I appreciate the concern, but you can't expect me to sit back and watch when I can help. Help or fight. Both. Izuku met Nezu's gaze. I know what I am. I'm not a hero. I don't got that save everyone mentality. But when someone strong shows up, when there's a chance to test myself and maybe protect some people in the process, I'm taking it. Nezu was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. You're going to be a problem, Sukehiro, but you're our problem. And I suppose that's what matters. So I'm not expelled? On the contrary, you're being awarded a commendation for capturing the hero killer. Nezu slid a document across the desk, though I'd appreciate if you'd at least pretend to follow protocol next time. No promises. The news of Izuku defeating Stain spread like wildfire. Within hours, he was trending on social media, his name on every news channel, his face plastered across headlines. UA student defeats hero killer Stain. Mysterious first year stronger than pro heroes. Who is Izuku Sukehiro? The attention was annoying. Reporters camped outside the dorms. Students from other classes asked for autographs. Even some pro heroes reached out, wanting to meet this kid who'd done what dozens of experienced heroes couldn't. Izuku ignored all of it. He had more important things to worry about, like the fact that his time at UA was revealing something uncomfortable. He was starting to care about these idiots he went to school with. When Bakugo got frustrated after losing yet another sparring match, Izuku found himself offering advice instead of just walking away. Your explosions are predictable, spiky bastard. Mix in some feints. Make me guess where the next blast's coming from. When Todoroki struggled to balance his fire and ice, Izuku sat with him in the training room. Stop thinking of them as separate powers. They're two halves of the same coin. Use them together, not in sequence. When Kirishima's confidence wavered after a particularly brutal training session, Izuku grabbed him by the shoulder. You got guts, Red. Your quirk ain't flashy, but you're tough. That counts for something. Keep pushing. He didn't realize he was becoming the exact thing he claimed he wasn't, someone who gave a damn. His classmates noticed. They started approaching him more, asking questions, seeking his guidance. Not because he was friendly, he absolutely wasn't, but because he was strong, and he was willing to help them get stronger. Even Aizawa commented on it. You're becoming a leader, Sukehiro, whether you like it or not. I hate it, Izuku said flatly. Too bad. They look up to you. Their mistake. But despite his protests, something had shifted. Class 1A wasn't just a collection of weak extras anymore. They were his classmates. His something. He didn't have a word for it. The League of Villains was regrouping. Their hideout, a dingy bar in a forgotten part of the city, was tense with failure. The hero killer was captured, Kurogiri reported, by the same student who defeated our Nomu at the USJ, Izuku Sukehiro. Shigaraki scratched his neck furiously, drawing blood. That cheat code. That broken, unfair, game-ruining bastard. He looked at the remaining League members, a patchwork of low-level villains and a few heavy hitters they'd recruited. We need to do something about him. He's too strong. He'll ruin everything. Perhaps we should avoid him, Kurogiri suggested. Focus on our original plan. The UA students, the symbol of peace. No! Shigaraki slammed his hands on the bar, decaying part of the counter. I want him gone. I want him destroyed. I want someone to prove he's not invincible. He turned to the shadowy figure sitting in the corner. You said you could handle him. The figure stepped into the light, a man covered in grotesque scars, his skin held together by staples, his eyes cold and calculating. I said I might be able to handle him, Dabi corrected. There's a difference. But yeah, I'll take a shot. Could be fun. Then do it, Shigaraki ordered. Find Sukehiro. Fight him. Fight him. Kill him if you can. Just prove he's not untouchable. Dabi grinned, blue flames flickering around his hands. You got it, boss. This should be interesting. Final exams were approaching, and with them, the end of the first semester. Izuku couldn't believe he'd survived 3 months of school without strangling someone or getting expelled. The exam format was announced. Students would face off against UA teachers in combat scenarios, pass by either restraining the teacher or escaping the designated area within 30 minutes. Who do you think you'll fight? Kaminari asked during lunch. The class speculating about matchups. Doesn't matter, Izuku said around a mouthful of food. Whoever it is, I'll crush them. That's the spirit, Kirishima said. Super manly. The matchups were revealed the day before exams. Izuku Sukehiro versus Principal Nezu. You're kidding, Izuku said when he saw his name. I gotta fight the principal? Technically, yes, Nezu said, appearing beside him with that unsettling smile. Though fight might be the wrong word. Think of it as a test of strategy, adaptation, and creative problem solving. You're going to use traps, aren't you? Extensively. The exam took place in a specially designed urban combat zone. Buildings, streets, alleys, all rigged with Nezu's devious traps and mechanisms. Your objective, Nezu announced over the intercom, is to either restrain me or escape the zone within 30 minutes. I'll be using every resource at my disposal. Good luck, Sukehiro. You'll need it. Izuku cracked his knuckles. All right, Principal, let's see what you got. The exam was unlike anything Izuku had faced. Nezu didn't fight directly, he manipulated the environment. Walls shifted, floors collapsed, automated weapons fired rubber bullets from hidden turrets. It was a maze designed by a genius, and Izuku was the rat trying to find the cheese. Except Izuku wasn't a rat. He was a predator. He used his ki sense to track Nezu's position, following the principal's life energy through the twisting corridors. But Nezu kept moving, staying ahead, always one step out of reach. You're relying too much on brute force. Nezu's voice echoed through the zone. Strategy. Sukehiro adaptation. Screw strategy, Izuku muttered. He raised his sword. Dark magic dimension slash. He cut through 3 buildings in a straight line, creating a direct path to where Nezu was hiding. The principal scrambled, activating more traps, but Izuku was already moving. Dark magic, black cocoon. Darkness wrapped around him, protecting against the automated weapons. He crashed through obstacles, ignoring Nezu's carefully laid plans, pursuing with single-minded determination. Finally, with 5 minutes left on the clock, he cornered Nezu in a dead-end alley. Gotcha, Izuku said. Nezu looked up at him, completely calm. Congratulations, Sukehiro, you pass. That's it? No final trap, no last-minute twist. Oh, there was a twist, but you destroyed it when you cut through those buildings. Nezu stepped forward, offering a paw. You've grown since you first arrived, not just in power, but in purpose. You're starting to understand what it means to protect others, to push your limits not just for yourself, but for those around you. Izuku took the paw, shaking it. Don't go getting all sentimental, Principal. I'm still just here for the toilets. Of course you are, Nezu said, smiling. Of course you are. The semester ended with a class trip announcement. UA would be taking the first years to a training camp in the mountains, a week-long intensive program designed to push their quirks to new levels. Finally, Izuku said when he heard the news. Some real training. His classmates were excited for different reasons. Time away from school, bonding experiences, proving themselves. Izuku just wanted to fight something strong and maybe use a toilet in peace. But as the date approached, something nagged at him. A feeling, an instinct owned by years of combat and survival. Something was coming. Something big. The League of Villains was planning something. He could feel it. And when they struck, it was going to be his chance to show them, to show everyone, what it really meant to surpass your limits. The training camp would be interesting. Very interesting indeed. As Class 1A boarded the bus to the training camp, Izuku took one last look at UA's main building. 3 months ago, he'd walked through those gates as a homeless delinquent with a sword and an attitude problem. Now, he was still a delinquent with a sword and an attitude problem. But he was also something else. A student. A fighter. Maybe even, though he'd never admitted out loud, a friend. Oi, Sukehiro, Bakugo shouted from the bus. Stop spacing out and get your ass on board. Shut the hell up, spiky bastard, Izuku shouted back, but he was grinning as he climbed onto the bus. His classmates had grown stronger. Todoroki could now seamlessly blend fire and ice. Bakugo's explosions had become more controlled, more strategic. Even the weaker students, Kaminari, Ashido, Siro, had improved dramatically. They were still nowhere near his level, probably never would be, but they were trying. And that was enough. Next stop, the training camp. Present Mike announced from the driver's seat, get ready for the hardest week of your lives. Bring it on, Izuku muttered, settling into his seat with his sword across his lap. I've been waiting for this. The bus pulled away from UA, carrying Class 1A toward their next challenge, toward growth, toward danger, toward the inevitable confrontation with the League of Villains that Izuku knew was coming. And when it did, he'd be ready, because that's what he did. He pushed forward, he surpassed his limits, and he crushed anyone stupid enough to stand in his way. The UA beginning saga had been eventful. Villain attacks, sports festivals, internships, exams, but it was just the prologue. The real story was about to begin. And Izuku Sukehiro, the reincarnation of Yami Sukehiro, the wielder of dark matter, the most powerful student UA had ever seen, was ready to write it in blood, darkness, and the broken limits of anyone who challenged him. "Surpass your limits," he whispered to himself, watching the city pass by through the bus window. That's what it's all about. The bus rumbled along the mountain road, filled with the excited chatter of Class 1A students heading toward their summer training camp. Izuku Sukehiro sat in the back, massive frame sprawled across 2 seats, cigarette dangling from his lips as he stared out the window with his perpetual scowl. The morning sun cast harsh shadows across his scarred face, making him look even more intimidating than usual. "I swear to God, if this camp doesn't have decent toilets, I'm burning the whole place down," he muttered, loud enough that several students flinched. Aizawa, sitting at the front of the bus, didn't even turn around. "Sukehiro, you will behave yourself. This is an important training opportunity." Yeah, important training. "I'm more concerned about important bowel movements, you crusty bastard." The students had learned over the past few months that this was just how Izuku communicated. The nervous, green-haired boy from entrance exam day was nowhere to be found, replaced entirely by this hulking, foul-mouthed powerhouse who'd somehow become the strongest student in UA history. His performance at the sports festival had been legendary, though not for the reasons most victories were celebrated. He'd threatened to kill half his opponents, actually fought while taking a dump during one match, and ended the whole thing by telling the #1 hero to shut his muscular ass up on live television. "Sukehiro, you can't just threaten to burn down our training facility," Ida said, chopping his hands through the air in that mechanical way of his. "This is a prestigious camp run by the Wild Wild Pussycats, a highly respected hero team who—" "Listen here, you four-eyed engine bastard," Izuku interrupted, fixing Ida with a glare that made the class president freeze mid-chop. "I respect exactly 2 things in this world: people who surpass their limits and a good toilet. Everything else can go to hell. So unless these pussycat people have mastered the art of toilet construction, I don't give a damn about their prestige." Bakugo snorted from across the aisle. "You're such a weird bastard, Sukehiro," says the spiky bastard who literally explodes his own sweat. "At least my weird shit is useful." The bus fell into an uneasy silence, broken only by Izuku's occasional grumbling about his digestive system and Kaminari's nervous laughter. They'd all witnessed what happened when Izuku got angry. Really angry. The League of Villains attack at USJ had ended with Izuku casually cutting through a Nomu like it was made of paper, then threatening to kill the hand-faced bastard who'd interrupted his bathroom time. Even Aizawa, their homeroom teacher, seemed wary of pushing Izuku too far. After several hours, the bus pulled to a stop on a cliff overlooking a vast forest. 2 women in cat-themed hero costumes stood waiting, their cheerful poses contrasting sharply with the wild terrain behind them. "Hello, UA students," the blonde one chirped. "I'm Pixie Bob, and this is Mandalay. Welcome to our camp." The students filed off the bus, stretching and looking around at the mountainous landscape. Izuku was the last to emerge, his katana strapped to his back and a fresh cigarette between his lips. His key sense immediately swept across the area, detecting life forces scattered throughout the forest, small animals, insects, and something else. Something watching. "Now then," Mandalay continued, her smile widening in a way that made several students nervous. "Your training begins immediately. You'll need to reach the facility at the base of the mountain before nightfall. Use your quirks, work together, and show us what UA's finest can do." "Wait," Kaminari said, peering over the cliff edge. "That's got to be miles away." 3 hours should be plenty of time," Pixie Bob laughed. "Oh, and one more thing. The forest is our territory. We've enhanced it with some special obstacles to test your abilities." Before anyone could protest, the ground beneath them began to crumble. Students yelped and scrambled backward, but Izuku simply stood there, scowling as the cliff face gave way. Everyone tumbled down the slope, crashing through branches and rolling across dirt until they landed in a heap at the forest's edge. "Bastard cats," Izuku muttered, having landed on his feet with his katana still perfectly secured. He hadn't even dropped his cigarette. "I'm going to cut them in half when I see them again." "Sukehiro, are you all right?" Ida called out, helping Midoriya, the green-haired girl who still found Izuku both terrifying and fascinating, to her feet. "Do I look all right, you idiot? I just got dumped off a cliff when I specifically said I had bowel movement concerns." He cracked his neck, the sound echoing through the forest. "Now I gotta walk through this shitty forest with a stomach ache. Someone's dying today." A massive roar interrupted his complaint. The earth shook as something enormous crashed through the trees, a beast made entirely of earth and stone, shaped vaguely like a tiger but the size of a building. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light as it opened its massive jaws, revealing teeth like boulders. "Earth Beast!" Pixie Bob's voice echoed from somewhere above. "This is your first test. Defeat it with your quirks and teamwork." The students scattered as the beast lunged forward, its massive paw slamming into the ground where they'd been standing. Todoroki immediately created an ice wall, while Bakugo launched himself into the air with explosions. "Sukehiro, we need a plan," Ida shouted. "Yeah, here's my plan. Get out of my way." Izuku walked forward, his hand resting on his katana's hilt. His key sense had already analyzed the beast. It was just earth and stone animated by Pixie Bob's quirk. No real life force, no real threat, just an annoyance standing between him and the facility where he desperately needed a bathroom. Dark magic, lightless slash. The katana left its sheath in a blur of motion, darkness coating the blade. The slash was invisible, cutting through dimensions before it cut through matter. The Earth Beast didn't even have time to roar before it split perfectly in half, both sections crumbling back into ordinary dirt and stone. The forest went silent. Even the birds stopped chirping. "What the?" Bakugo landed nearby, staring at the pile of earth. "You just one-shot that thing. It was in my way. Now move. I need to find a toilet before my intestines stage a rebellion." Izuku sheathed his katana and continued walking toward the facility, leaving his stunned classmates behind. His key sense detected more earth beasts forming throughout the forest. Pixie Bob's doing, no doubt, but none of them approached him. Even animated constructs seemed to understand the aura of violence that surrounded the massive young man. The other students had to fight their way through the forest, using teamwork and strategy to defeat the earth beasts that blocked their path. Izuku simply walked in a straight line, and anything foolish enough to attack him was reduced to rubble with casual slashes. He didn't even look annoyed anymore, just focused on his singular goal of reaching a bathroom. By the time the sun began setting, the students had mostly reached the facility, exhausted and covered in dirt. Izuku had arrived 2 hours earlier and was already scowling at the building's exterior. "There better be pristine toilets in there," he said to no one in particular. "After that walk, I'm ready to commit multiple homicides." The facility was a large lodge built into the mountainside, with training grounds and various buildings scattered around it. The wild pussycats greeted the arriving students with enthusiasm, though Pixie Bob kept her distance from Izuku after seeing what he'd done to her Earth Beast. "Welcome, everyone. Tonight you'll rest and eat, and tomorrow your real training begins," Mandalay announced. "We have 2 other students already here. They arrived early to help with preparations." 2 figures emerged from the lodge. One was a small boy with a red cap, and the other was a muscular student with an intense expression. "This is my nephew, Kota," Mandalay introduced, "and this is Shishido from Ketsubutsu Academy. He'll be training alongside you." Kota glared at the UA students with obvious disdain. "Heroes are all stupid. You're just going to get yourselves killed." Several students looked taken aback by the child's hostility, but Izuku just snorted. "Kids got sense. Most heroes are idiots." He took a drag from his cigarette. "But getting killed is optional. Surpass your limits and you live. Stay weak and you die. Simple as that." Kota stared at him, seeming unsure whether to be offended or intrigued. Before he could respond, Izuku was already walking toward the building, muttering about needing to inspect the bathrooms immediately. The interior of the lodge was spacious and well-maintained, with large common areas and rooms for the students. But Izuku ignored all of it, his key sense leading him through the halls until he found what he was looking for, a bathroom at the far end of the building, isolated and pristine. He opened the door and stopped dead, his eyes widening slightly. The bathroom was perfect, spotlessly clean, well-ventilated, with a toilet that looked like it had been installed yesterday, soft lighting, sound-dampening walls, even a small window with a view of the forest. Finally, he breathed, a toilet worthy of my ass. For the first time since arriving at UA, Izuku Sukehiro smiled, not a smirk or a threatening grin, but an actual smile of genuine satisfaction. He stepped inside, locked the door, and for a brief moment allowed himself to relax. That night, the students gathered for dinner in the large dining hall. The Wild Pussycats had prepared a massive meal, and everyone dug in eagerly after their exhausting day. Izuku sat at the end of one table, consuming food at an alarming rate while simultaneously threatening Mineta for getting too close to the female students. "Sukehiro, you really should try to make friends," Ida suggested, though he kept a safe distance. "Team bonding is important for hero work." "I have friends. Spiky bastard over there tolerates me, half and half bastard doesn't run away anymore, and that bird-headed bastard can take a punch. That's enough friendship for me." Tokoyami, sitting nearby, nodded slightly. "I appreciate your honesty, Sukehiro. See? Bird boy gets it." The evening continued with students relaxing and discussing the next day's training. Aizawa explained that they would be pushed to improve their quirks through intensive individual training designed to strengthen their weak points. The students seemed both excited and nervous about the challenge. Izuku, however, was focused on something else entirely. His key sense had been detecting something strange all evening. Life forces at the edge of his range, watching the facility. They weren't animals. Too focused. Too deliberate. He'd dealt with enough threats to recognize hostile intent when he felt it. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Tonight, he had more important concerns. "I'm taking a dump," he announced, standing abruptly. "If anyone bothers me, I'm killing them." He left the dining hall before anyone could respond, heading straight for his newfound sanctuary at the far end of the lodge. The bathroom was exactly as he'd left it, perfect, peaceful, isolated. He locked the door and settled in, finally able to address the digestive distress that had plagued him all day. "This is it," he muttered, lighting a cigarette. "This is the good stuff. Religious experience right here." The next morning began with Aizawa gathering everyone in the main training area. The students stood in lines, most still yawning and adjusting to the early hour. Izuku stood at the back, looking slightly more relaxed than usual after finally getting proper bathroom time. "Today, you'll begin your quirk training," Aizawa announced. "Each of you has weaknesses that need to be addressed. We'll be working individually to push you beyond your current limits." Pixie Bob stepped forward, grinning eagerly. "I'll be creating earth training dummies for those who need targets. Let's make this fun." "Before we start," Mandalay added, "I should mention that we have another pro hero arriving today to assist with training. He's—" "Don't care," Izuku interrupted. "Just point me at something to hit. I need to work off this morning's breakfast." The training began with each student receiving personalized exercises. Bakugo was submerged in boiling water to expand his explosion capacity. Todoroki worked on using both sides of his quirk simultaneously. Ida ran endless sprints to increase his engine's duration. Izuku's training was different. Aizawa had him stand in an open field while Pixie Bob created progressively larger and more complex earth constructs for him to fight. The goal was to push his dark magic to new heights, to discover techniques beyond what he already knew. Dark magic black hole. The darkness erupted from his katana, creating a swirling vortex that consumed the earth beast entirely. Not destroyed. Consumed, pulled into absolute nothingness. The technique was devastatingly effective, but required immense concentration. Again, Aizawa called out, "Faster this time. You need to be able to use these techniques instinctively." Izuku scowled but complied. Another earth beast rose from the ground, and he cut it down with a dimension slash before it could fully form. Then another, and another. His movements were fluid despite his size, each swing of his katana precisely calculated. But even as he trained, his key sense remained active, monitoring those hostile presences at the edge of the forest. They were closer now, more of them. Waiting for something, the training continued through the morning and into the afternoon. Students pushed themselves to exhaustion and beyond, determined to improve. Izuku noticed that even Bakugo seemed focused, the explosive blonde actually taking the training seriously instead of just trying to prove his superiority. "Surpass your limits," Izuku muttered during a brief break. "That's what it's all about, though right now I'd settle for a good bathroom break." That evening, after another massive dinner, Izuku made his way back to his sanctuary. The bathroom at the far end of the lodge called to him like a beacon of civilization in this wilderness training camp. He'd had a productive day of training, discovered a new variation of his black blade technique, and successfully avoided being roped into any team bonding activities. All in all, a good day. He entered the bathroom, locked the door, and began to settle in for what he anticipated would be another peaceful, satisfying experience. The window showed the darkening forest outside, stars beginning to appear in the clear sky. Perfect ambiance. Finally, he sighed, lighting a cigarette. This is what I've been waiting for all day. Just me, this beautiful toilet, and absolutely no interruptions from idiotic. His key sense exploded with warning. Multiple hostile presences, dozens of them, suddenly appearing throughout the forest, not gradually approaching, appearing like they'd teleported in, and they were moving fast, heading straight for the facility. "You've got to be shitting me," Izuku growled. "Right now? Right now?" The wall exploded inward. Not the door, the entire wall shattered by something massive and black. Dust and debris filled the bathroom as a hulking figure stepped through the ruined wall. A Nomu, its exposed brain pulsating with unnatural energy, its body covered in grotesque mutations. Izuku stared at the creature. The creature stared back. Time seemed to freeze. "You?" Izuku's voice was barely a whisper, but it carried more menace than any shout. "You just destroyed my toilet." The Nomu lunged forward, muscles bulging as it swung a massive fist. Izuku didn't move from his seated position. His hand shot out, catching the Nomu's fist with his bare hand. The impact shattered the floor beneath them, but Izuku didn't budge an inch. "I was having a religious experience." His voice rose to a roar that shook the entire building. "The best dump of my life, and you bastards ruined it." Dark magic erupted from his body like a tidal wave of pure malevolence. The darkness wasn't just coating his sword, it was everywhere, consuming light itself, turning the destroyed bathroom into a void of absolute blackness. The Nomu tried to pull its fist back, but found it couldn't move. Izuku's grip was like iron, holding the massive creature in place. Dark magic death thrust. His katana materialized in his free hand, though he hadn't been holding it a moment ago. The blade shot forward, darkness concentrated into a point sharper than anything in nature. It punched through the Nomu's exposed brain and out the back of its skull in one smooth motion. The creature didn't even have time to screech before it collapsed, dead before it hit the ground. But Izuku wasn't done. His key sense detected more Nomus throughout the facility, more attacking the students, more destroying his peace. And beyond them, other presences. Villains, the League of Villains, here to attack the training camp. They'd interrupted his dump. They'd destroyed his perfect toilet. They were about to learn why that was the worst mistake of their lives. Izuku stood, pulling up his pants with one hand while sheathing his katana with the other. The darkness around him didn't dissipate. It grew stronger, pulsing with his rage. He stepped through the destroyed wall and into the hallway, where he could hear screaming and explosions from throughout the facility. "Surpass your limits?" He cracked his knuckles, each pop sounding like a gunshot. "I'm about to surpass the limit of how many bastards I can kill in 5 minutes." The hallway exploded as another Nomu crashed through the ceiling, followed by 2 more bursting through the walls. They'd clearly been drawn by his dark energy, converging on what they perceived as a threat. What they'd actually found was something far worse. Dark magic, black cocoon. The darkness formed a sphere around all 3 Nomus, cutting them off from the rest of the world. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the sphere contracted, crushing everything inside it with such force that the Nomus were reduced to molecular paste. When the darkness dissipated, there was nothing left but a stain on the floor. Izuku walked through it without looking down, his cigarette somehow still lit despite the destruction. Students were fleeing through the hallways, some injured, others helping their classmates escape. He spotted Koda hiding behind an overturned table, eyes wide with terror. "Kid, get to the main hall. Now." His voice was hard but not directed at the child. "And tell anyone you see, stay out of my way. I'm about to paint this whole forest red." He didn't wait for a response. His key sense was tracking every hostile presence in the area, categorizing threats and planning his attack pattern. There were dozens of enemies, far more than should have been possible to coordinate for an attack like this. The League had brought their full force. Good. He was in the mood to kill. Izuku reached the main entrance and kicked the doors off their hinges. Outside, the training grounds had become a battlefield. Earth beasts fought alongside heroes against a swarm of Nomus and League members. Pixie Bob was down, injured but alive. Mandalay was protecting students while using her telepath quirk to coordinate evacuation, and scattered throughout were the League's elite. Dabi, Toga, Twice, Compress, Muscular, Moonfish, Mustard, Spinner, Magni. They all stopped when they felt his presence. The darkness radiating from Izuku was so intense it created an actual shadow on the ground, spreading like a stain across the battlefield. Even the Nomus hesitated, their limited brains recognizing something fundamentally dangerous. "Listen up, you toilet-destroying pieces of shit." Izuku's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "I don't know who thought attacking this camp was a good idea. I don't know what your plan is. I don't care. You interrupted the best dump I've had in weeks. You destroyed a perfect bathroom. For that, every single one of you dies tonight." Dabi was the first to recover, blue flames erupting from his hands. "Big talk from a UA student. You're just dark magic, lightless slash." The slash was invisible, cutting through space before it cut through matter. Dabi barely managed to dodge, the attack shearing off a chunk of his coat and leaving a massive gouge in the ground behind him. The fire user's eyes widened in genuine shock. What the hell? Dark magic, black blade. Izuku's katana became coated in darkness so dense it seemed to bend light around it. He vanished, moving faster than most could track, and appeared behind Muscular, the massive villain who'd been advancing on a group of students. The blade swept horizontally, and Muscular's muscle fibers, which could withstand bullets and explosions, parted like tissue paper. The villain collapsed in 2 pieces, dead before he understood what had happened. One down. Who's next? Toga squealed in delight and terror. "He's so scary! I love it! I want his blood!" She lunged forward with her knives, moving with surprising speed and agility. Izuku didn't even turn to look at her. His hand shot out, catching her by the throat mid-leap, and slammed her into the ground hard enough to create a crater. She gasped for air, struggling against his grip. "You're that psycho girl who's obsessed with blood." He tightened his hold slightly. "I should kill you right now. Give me one reason why I shouldn't." Because I think you're amazing." She wheezed, her face turning red. "You're so strong and scary and perfect. Please let me have just a little bit of your blood." "You're completely insane." He threw her aside, sending her crashing into a tree. "But you didn't destroy my toilet. Get out of here before I change my mind." Toga stumbled to her feet and fled into the forest, looking back with a mixture of fear and obsession. Izuku had already dismissed her, his attention on the real threats. Twice's clones were swarming across the battlefield, dozens of copies attacking students and heroes alike. Izuku's key sense could distinguish the real one from the copies, slightly different life force, slightly different movements. He pointed his katana at a seemingly random clone in the mass of identical figures. Dark magic, black moon. A crescent of pure darkness shot from his blade, expanding as it traveled. It cut through every clone in its path, reducing them to nothing, before striking the real Twice and sending him flying. The villain crashed into the lodge wall and didn't get up. 2 down. This is too easy. Mr. Compress materialized nearby, his showman's cape billowing dramatically. "How fascinating, a student with such incredible power. I simply must add you to my collection." He activated his quirk, attempting to compress Izuku into one of his marbles. The compression started, reality warping around Izuku's massive form, but then the darkness erupted from his body. The dark magic shredded Mr. Compress's quirk effect. the two powers canceling each other out in a shower of sparks. Your quirk doesn't work on me, magician bastard. Darkness eats everything, even space compression bullshit. Izuku appeared in front of Mr. Compress faster than the villain could react, his katana already in motion. The blade swept upward and the villain's mask, along with most of his face, was sheared away. He collapsed backwards, screaming and clutching at his ruined features. 3 down. Come on, you bastards. I thought the League of Villains was supposed to be scary. Moonfish emerged from the shadows, his bladed teeth extending like grotesque weapons. Flesh! Give me your flesh! The teeth shot toward Izuku from multiple angles, each one sharp enough to cut through steel. Izuku didn't dodge. He let the blades strike his body, and they shattered on impact with his dark magic-enhanced skin. Moonfish froze in confusion. My turn. Dark magic, lightless barrage. Izuku's katana became a blur, unleashing hundreds of invisible slashes in the span of a second. Moonfish's body was cut so many times from so many angles that when the attack ended, the villain simply fell apart into perfectly cubed pieces. 4 down. Mustard, hiding in his poison gas, tried to use the confusion to his advantage. He fired his gun at Izuku from within the toxic cloud, the bullets finding their mark. But dark magic absorbed the impacts, and Izuku's key sense had already pinpointed the shooter's exact location. Hiding in gas won't save you. Dark magic, black cocoon. The sphere of darkness formed around Mustard, trapping him inside with his own poison gas. The villain's screams were muffled but audible. When the sphere dissipated, Mustard was unconscious, his own quirk having knocked him out. Izuku didn't bother killing him. The bastard wasn't worth the effort. Spinner and Magni looked at each other, then at the bodies of their comrades, then at Izuku, walking toward them through the carnage. He made the smart choice and fled into the forest without saying a word. That's right, run, you cowards! Izuku shouted after them. Tell whoever sent you that Izuku Sukehiro is coming for them, and when I find them, I'm going to shove my katana so far up their ass they'll... His key sense exploded with a warning unlike anything he'd felt before. Every instinct screamed danger as an overwhelming presence appeared at the edge of the battlefield. Not a presence. The presence. A concentration of power and malice that dwarfed everything else combined. The air itself seemed to thicken as a figure emerged from the darkness of the forest. Tall, impeccably dressed in a dark suit, his face covered by a smooth black mask with breathing apparatus. The students who could see him felt their blood run cold. The heroes recognized him immediately and felt their hearts sink. All for one had arrived. How disappointing. The villain's voice was calm, almost gentle. I expected the League to handle a simple training camp raid without difficulty. Instead, I find them decimated by a single student. He turned his masked face toward Izuku. You must be the anomaly I've been hearing about. Izuku Sukehiro, wielder of the dark matter quirk. Izuku stared at him, his key sense analyzing the new arrival. The life force was enormous, easily surpassing all mights. But there was something else. Layers upon layers of different energies like different powers all compressed into one being. This wasn't just a strong villain. This was something far more dangerous. And you must be the head bastard in charge of the toilet-destroying assholes, Izuku replied, lighting a fresh cigarette. You picked a bad night to show up. I'm still pissed about my bathroom. All for One tilted his head slightly. Your bathroom? That's what concerns you? Not the attack on your school? Not the danger to your classmates? A bathroom? You don't understand. Izuku's grip on his katana tightened. I finally found the perfect toilet. Perfect lighting, perfect ventilation, perfect everything. And your Nomu bastards destroyed it while I was having the best dump of my life. That's unforgivable. For a moment, All for One was silent. Then he laughed. A genuine, amused laugh that sent chills down the spines of everyone who heard it. Fascinating. You really are different from other heroes in training. Most would make grandiose speeches about justice and protecting the innocent. But you're angry about a toilet. Damn right I am. And you're the bastard in charge of these idiots, which means you're responsible for what happened to my bathroom, which means you're going to die tonight. The temperature seemed to drop 20 degrees. All for One's amusement faded, replaced by something darker. Such confidence, but do you understand what you're facing, young Sukehiro? I am All for One. I have existed for over a century, accumulating power and knowledge beyond your comprehension. I have toppled governments, crushed heroes, and shaped the very course of this society. And you think you can kill me over a bathroom? I've killed plenty of bastards for less. You're just another name on the list. Izuku drew his katana fully, darkness already beginning to coat the blade. Besides, you talk too much. That's usually a sign someone's trying to compensate for being weak. All for One's presence intensified, reality itself seeming to warp around him. I had planned to simply observe tonight, perhaps capture you for study, but you've insulted me, killed my subordinates, and shown such disrespect that I cannot allow it to stand. I'll take your quirk for my collection, along with your life. Consider it a lesson in humility. Dark magic, death thrust. Izuku didn't wait for more talking. He launched forward, his blade aimed directly at All for One's heart. The attack was blindingly fast, empowered by his rage and dark magic. The kind of strike that had killed countless enemies. All for One raised one hand, and Izuku's blade stopped inches from his chest. Not blocked, stopped, held in place by an invisible force. Air manipulation, All for One explained casually. One of many quirks in my possession. Did you really think a straightforward attack would work on me? No, Izuku's scowl deepened. I thought it would make a good distraction. Dark magic, dimension slash. The invisible slash came from a completely different angle, cutting through the dimensional space between them. All for One's eyes widened slightly behind his mask. He could sense the attack, but couldn't see it. He unleashed multiple quirks simultaneously, creating barriers of hardened air, impact reversal, and spatial distortion. The dimension slash cut through all of them and gouged a deep wound across All for One's shoulder. The villain's blood, black as oil, dripped onto the ground. Impressive, All for One said, his tone still calm despite the injury. You actually managed to wound me, but now you've shown me your technique. It won't work twice. Then I'll use a different one. Dark magic black hole. The vortex of absolute darkness erupted from Izuku's katana, expanding rapidly to consume everything in its path. All for One activated multiple quirks: propulsion to launch himself backward, air barrier to slow the vortex's expansion, energy absorption to try to nullify it. The black hole consumed some of his defenses, but didn't reach him. A gravitational quirk effect? No, something more fundamental. Your darkness truly does consume everything. All for One began walking forward, each step radiating power. But consumption works both ways. Let me show you what a century of stolen quirks can accomplish. He raised both hands and reality went insane. Hundreds of quirks activated simultaneously. Fire, ice, lightning, force waves, spatial warps, time dilation fields, matter reconstruction, organic acceleration, entropy reversal. An impossible barrage of effects that no single person should be able to coordinate. Izuku's ki sense was overwhelmed by the sheer variety of attacks. He couldn't dodge them all, couldn't block them all, so he did the only thing he could. He released his full power. Dark magic, dark-cloaked black blade. The darkness that had been coating his katana exploded outward, forming a cloak of pure dark magic around his entire body. The cloak wasn't just defensive, it was an extension of his will, his rage, his absolute refusal to be defeated. Every attack that touched the cloak was consumed, pulled into the void, and erased from existence. All for One's barrage intensified, but the dark cloak held. Izuku advanced through the storm of quirks, his katana raised, his scowl deepening with beneath his feet cracked and shattered from the pressure of his aura alone. Impossible. All for One muttered, genuine surprise in his voice. Your quirk is consuming mine, not blocking, not deflecting, actually eating the energy of my attacks. What are you? I already told you. I'm the guy who's going to kill you for associating with toilet-destroying bastards. Izuku was close now, within striking range. Dark magic, dark cloak dimension slash. The attack combined his two most powerful techniques. The dimension slash cut through space itself, while the dark cloak amplified its power beyond anything Izuku had achieved before. The slash wasn't invisible this time, it was a crescent of absolute darkness that severed dimensions as it traveled. All for One tried to dodge, tried to teleport, tried to create spatial barriers. Nothing worked. The dark cloak dimension slash cut through every defense, through every quirk, through space itself. It struck All for One directly in the chest, carving a massive wound that would have bisected anyone else. But All for One had a regeneration quirk. 3 of them, actually. His body began healing immediately, flesh knitting back together at visible speed. He staggered backward, reassessing his opponent. "You're strong. Stronger than any student should be. Stronger than most pro heroes." His voice had lost its casual tone, replaced by cold calculation. "But regeneration isn't my only defensive quirk. I have dozens. You'll need to kill me dozens of times to make it stick. Can you do that before exhausting yourself?" Izuku's response was to attack again and again and again. His katana became a blur of darkness, each strike carrying enough power to level a building. All for One defended with an ever-changing array of quirks: impact nullification, attack reflection, kinetic absorption, damage transfer. They moved across the battlefield at speeds that made them nearly invisible, their clash generating shockwaves that knocked students and heroes off their feet. Every exchange of blows created craters, shattered trees, and sent debris flying in all directions. Aizawa, watching from where he was protecting students, couldn't believe what he was seeing. Izuku was fighting evenly with All for One. A first-year student was matching the most dangerous villain in history blow for blow. It defied everything he understood about power scaling and experience. "Sukehiro," Aizawa shouted. "Fall back, we need to evacuate," and "No." Izuku's roar cut through the chaos. "This bastard sent the Nomus that destroyed my toilet. He's the one in charge. I'm not letting him walk away." All for One laughed, the sound devoid of humor. Such singular focus. Most heroes would be concerned about collateral damage, civilian casualties, tactical positioning, but you only care about revenge for a bathroom. It's almost refreshing in its simplicity. "I don't give a damn about being a hero." Izuku unleashed another barrage of attacks. "I care about making bastards who cross me pay the price. Dark magic, Black Moon." The crescent of darkness expanded as it flew, growing to the size of a building. All for One combined 10 different quirks to create a barrier strong enough to withstand it, but the impact drove him backward, his feet carving trenches in the earth. "Your power is remarkable, but unfocused," All for One observed, his hands glowing with accumulated energy. "You rely on rage and raw strength. I have fought All Might for decades. I know how to defeat overwhelming power with precision and strategy." He unleashed a concentrated beam of energy that combined force multiplication, heat generation, and spatial compression. The attack was impossibly dense, impossibly precise, aimed directly at Izuku's heart. Even with his dark cloak, Izuku couldn't completely absorb it. The beam punched through his defenses and burned into his chest. Izuku grunted in pain, but didn't fall. His regeneration, enhanced by dark magic flowing through his body, began healing the wound immediately. Not as fast as All for One's multiple regeneration quirks, but fast enough. "You can heal too?" All for One sounded genuinely intrigued now. "Your quirk is more versatile than I realized. Dark matter indeed, the foundation of all things, infinite in potential. I must have it." He activated his signature quirk, the one that gave him his name. The power to steal quirks, to rip them from their users and claim them for himself. Invisible tendrils of energy reached out from All for One toward Izuku, attempting to connect with his quirk factor and tear it away. The moment the tendrils touched Izuku's darkness, they vanished, consumed, erased. All for One felt a chunk of his stealing power disappear into nothingness. "What?" For the first time, All for One sounded genuinely shocked. "My quirk stealing ability, it's not working. Your darkness is eating it." Izuku's scowl transformed into a vicious grin. "Did you really think you could steal my dark magic? Darkness consumes everything, you bastard. That includes your quirk-stealing bullshit. You can't take what doesn't exist in your framework of understanding." All for One took an involuntary step backward. In over a century of life, across hundreds of battles and thousands of stolen quirks, he had never encountered something that could nullify his core ability. He'd faced All Might's overwhelming strength, but even that could theoretically be stolen given the right circumstances. But this darkness, this fundamental wrongness that existed outside normal quirk mechanics, was immune to his power. "This is impossible," All for One muttered. "All things are bound by quirk factors. All powers can be stolen, transferred, nullified. That's the fundamental law of our reality. Your power shouldn't exist. Maybe in this shitty world's rules." Izuku advanced, his dark cloak intensifying until reality seemed to bend around him. But my dark magic comes from something deeper than quirks. It's the primordial darkness that existed before light, before matter, before your pathetic understanding of power, and now you're going to experience it firsthand. He raised his katana and the darkness responded, not just around the blade, but everywhere. The shadows cast by trees, the darkness of night itself, even the darkness within All for One's own body. All of it answered Izuku's call, flowing toward him like a river flowing downhill. Dark magic, dark-cloaked Avidya slash. The technique was something new, born from Izuku's rage and the unique circumstances of this battle. The slash cut through everything, space, time, matter, energy, and even causality itself. It was the ultimate expression of his dark magic, a technique that shouldn't exist because it violated the fundamental laws of physics. All for One threw every defensive quirk he possessed into a desperate barrier. Force fields, spatial warps, temporal shields, matter hardening, energy absorption, damage transfer, reality anchoring, entropy reversal, existence stabilization. Over 50 defensive quirks activated simultaneously. The dark-cloaked Avidya slash cut through all of them as if they weren't there. Because to the primordial darkness that Izuku wielded, they weren't. They were just temporary constructs of a reality that darkness predated and would outlast. The slash struck All for One directly, cutting through his torso at an angle. His regeneration quirks activated immediately, trying to heal the wound. But the darkness had already infiltrated his body, consuming his healing factor from within. He fell to his knees, black blood pouring from the wound. This can't be. All for One gasped, his voice losing its cultured tone. I am All for One. I have conquered death itself through stolen quirks. I cannot be defeated by a mere student. You're not being defeated by a student, Izuku said coldly, raising his katana for the final strike. You're being killed by Izuku Sukehiro, who really enjoyed his perfect toilet and is extremely pissed that your Nomus destroyed it. Any last words before I send you to hell? All for One looked up at him, and behind the mask, his ruined face twisted into something that might have been a smile. Tell my student, tell Tamura that he must surpass me, that he must become something greater than I ever was. Tell him. Yeah, I'm not doing any of that. Izuku's katana descended. Dark magic dimension slash equinox. The final technique combined everything he'd learned, everything he'd developed, every ounce of rage and power he possessed. The slash existed in all dimensions simultaneously, cutting through past, present, and future. There was no defense, no escape, no way to survive. All for One's body split perfectly in half, the two pieces falling in opposite directions. But the darkness wasn't done. It consumed the corpse entirely, erasing it from existence down to the molecular level. When the technique ended, there was nothing left. No body, no blood, no trace that All for One had ever existed except for the crater his death had created. Izuku stood in the center of the devastation, his dark cloak dissipating as his rage finally subsided. His cigarette had survived somehow, still smoldering between his lips. He took a long drag and exhaled smoke into the night air. Bastard, he muttered. Made me use my new technique. I was saving that for someone important. The battlefield was silent. Every student, every hero, every villain who remained conscious simply stared at what had just happened. Izuku Sukehiro, a first-year student at UA High School, had just killed All for One, the most dangerous villain in history, the man who'd nearly killed All Might multiple times, the Shadow Emperor who'd ruled the criminal underworld for over a century, killed him, not defeated, not captured, killed, completely and utterly destroyed with such finality that not even ash remained. Aizawa was the first to move, stumbling forward on shaking legs. Sukehiro, what have you done? I killed the bastard responsible for destroying my toilet, Izuku replied matter-of-factly. What's the problem? He was a villain. I'm training to be a hero. That's how this works, right? You don't understand. Aizawa's voice was hollow. All for One wasn't just any villain. He was the villain, the boogeyman, the ultimate threat. Entire governments were terrified of him, and you just killed him. A 15-year-old student killed the most dangerous man alive. He pissed me off. People who piss me off die. Simple as that. Izuku sheathed his katana and started walking back toward the lodge. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to find a new bathroom since mine got destroyed. Anyone got recommendations? He walked past the stunned heroes and students, leaving them to process what had just occurred. In the forest, The remaining League members who'd witnessed All for One's death fled in absolute terror. Their master, their leader, their supposedly immortal commander had been erased from existence by a scowling teenager with a sword and a cigarette. Tamura Shigaraki, watching from a hidden vantage point through Kurogiri's warp gate, felt his entire worldview shatter. Sensei was gone. The man who'd raised him, trained him, promised him the world. Dead. Killed so thoroughly that not even dust remained. "Close the gate," Shigaraki whispered, his voice breaking. "Close it now. We need to leave. We need to." The warp gate snapped shut before he could finish. Kurogiri had already come to the same conclusion. They weren't just retreating from a failed mission. They were fleeing for their lives from something that defied all understanding. Back at the training camp, the pro-heroes began arriving in force. They'd received Mandalay's emergency signal and rushed to the scene, expecting to find carnage and casualties. What they found was worse, and somehow better. The training camp was destroyed. Buildings damaged, training grounds cratered, the entire area looking like a war zone. But the students were mostly safe, protected by Aizawa and the Wild Pussycats during the chaos. Some injuries, but nothing life-threatening, and scattered across the battlefield were the bodies of League of Villains members. Muscular dead. Moonfish, dead. Dead. Several Nomus, dead. Twice and Mr. Compress, critically injured but alive. And in the center of it all, a massive crater where the final battle had occurred. All Might arrived last, his skeletal form barely able to run. When he saw the crater, when he felt the residual energy of dark magic lingering in the air, when the heroes explained what had happened, he collapsed to his knees. "Impossible," he whispered. "All for One. He's really gone? After all these years, all these battles, all the pain he caused, he's finally dead?" "Sukehiro killed him," Aizawa confirmed, still processing the event himself. "Used some technique that erased him completely. I've never seen anything like it." All Might's skeletal frame shook, whether with relief, grief, or shock, no one could tell. "I've fought All for One multiple times, nearly died every time. Even at my peak, in my prime, with One for All's full power, I could never kill him. Just wound him, drive him back, force him into hiding. But a 15-year-old boy did what I never could." "He's not a normal 15-year-old, Pixie Bob said from where she was being treated for her injuries. "I've never felt power like that. It was like standing next to a black hole, everything pulled toward him, consumed by that darkness." The media arrived within hours, drawn by reports of an attack on UA's training camp. They expected to report on a villain assault, perhaps some injured students, maybe even a tragic death or two. What they got was the story of the century. First-year student kills All for One dominated every headline. News channels played shaky footage captured by students on their phones. Glimpses of Izuku's battle, the overwhelming darkness, the moment All for One was erased from existence. Social media exploded with reactions ranging from celebration to disbelief to terror. The Hero Public Safety Commission went into emergency session. The police contacted UA immediately. The government demanded answers. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. How had a teenager killed the most dangerous villain in history, and what did it mean for the future? Izuku, meanwhile, had found a functional bathroom in one of the undamaged buildings and was completely ignoring the chaos his actions had caused. He sat in peaceful silence, finally able to finish what the Nomus had interrupted, smoking a cigarette and contemplating the evening's events. "All for One," he muttered to himself. Bastard had over 100 quirks and still couldn't beat dark magic. Just proves that accumulating power without understanding it is worthless. Quantity means nothing compared to quality. A knock on the bathroom door interrupted his musings. "Sukehiro, it's Aizawa. We need to talk." "I'm taking a shit. Talk later." "This can't wait. The authorities want to speak with you about what happened. They're sending representatives from the commission, the police, possibly even government officials. You killed All for One. The ramifications are enormous. And the bastard attacked us. He was responsible for destroying my toilet. I killed him. End of story. What's there to talk about?" There was a long pause. "Sukehiro, you don't understand how significant this is. All for One was the ultimate evil in our society. Wars were fought because of him. Heroes died fighting him. Entire agencies were formed just to track him, and now he's gone. Killed by a UA student during a training camp attack. The entire world is going to change because of what you did." Good. Maybe without that bastard around, I can use toilets in peace. Now go away. I'm busy. Aizawa sighed, recognizing the futility of arguing with Izuku when he was in this mood. Fine, but you will talk to the authorities eventually, and you will explain exactly what happened out there. Yeah. I'll tell them the same thing I'm telling you. Bastard destroyed my toilet, I killed him, end of discussion. If they want more details than that, they can piss off. The next morning, the training camp was swarming with officials. The Hero Public Safety Commission had sent their top investigators. The police had brought their best detectives. Even representatives from the government had arrived, wanting first-hand accounts of what had transpired. The students were being interviewed one by one, each giving their perspective on the battle. Most could only describe fragments. They'd been focused on survival, on escaping the Nomus and League members. But a few, like Bakugo and Todoroki, had witnessed significant portions of Izuku's fight with All for One. It wasn't a fight, Bakugo told the investigators, his expression unusually serious. It was an execution. That Sukehiro bastard was toying with him at first, probably because he was pissed about his stupid toilet. Then he got serious and just erased him, like he was nothing. Todoroki's account was similar. All for One was using dozens of quirks simultaneously, attacks that should have killed anyone. But Sukehiro's darkness consumed everything. I've never seen anything that powerful, not even from All Might. When it came time to interview Izuku himself, the investigators found him in a remarkably bad mood. He'd spent the night in a subpar bathroom, his usual cigarette supply was running low, and people kept interrupting his attempts to find a peaceful place to relieve himself. Mr. Sukehiro, the lead investigator began, a severe woman in a business suit. I'm from the Hero Public Safety Commission. We need to ask you about last night's events. I killed All for One because he was responsible for destroying my toilet. That's all you need to know. Izuku didn't look up from where he was sitting, his katana across his lap. I understand your frustration, but we need more details than that. All for One was an S-rank villain, the highest threat level possible. His death has massive implications for Hero Society, like international relations, criminal organizations, don't care. He pissed me off. He died. If other bastards want to piss me off, they'll die too. That's how I operate. The investigator's eye twitched. Mr. Sukehiro, your attitude is noted, but you must understand the seriousness of this situation. You killed a villain who attacked my school, destroyed property, endangered my classmates, and ruined the best bathroom I'd found in months. Yeah, I killed him. I'd do it again. I'd kill him slower if I could bring him back just for that purpose. Is there a problem with that? The problem, another official interjected, is that you're a student. Students aren't supposed to kill villains, even in self-defense. The level of force you used was extreme, perhaps excessive. There will be inquiries, possibly legal ramifications. Izuku's scowl deepened. Let me make something very clear to you bureaucratic bastards. I don't give a damn about your inquiries or ramifications or legal bullshit. All for One tried to kill me and my classmates. He destroyed my property. In my book, that's a death sentence. I carried it out. If you have a problem with that, you're welcome to try doing something about it, but I promise you won't like how it ends. The investigators exchanged nervous glances. They'd been briefed on Izuku's power, seen the footage of what he'd done to All for One. Threatening him, even implicitly, was a terrible idea, but they had a job to do, protocols to follow. We're not threatening you, Mr. Sukehiro, the lead investigator said carefully. We simply need to understand what happened for the record. Can you describe the battle in detail? He showed up. I was angry about my toilet. We fought. I used my dark magic to cut him in half and then erased his existence. He died. End of description. What specific techniques did you use? How were you able to counter his quirks? Why didn't his regeneration save him? Dark magic, black hole, death thrust, dimension slash, black moon, dark cloaked black blade, dark cloaked dimension slash, dark cloaked avidya slash, and dimension slash equinox for the final kill. My darkness consumes everything, including quirks, so his defenses meant nothing. His regeneration couldn't keep up because I was destroying him faster than he could heal. Any other stupid questions? The investigators scribbled frantically in their notebooks. Several of the techniques Izuku had listed weren't in any database, hadn't been documented in his previous battles. He'd apparently created new abilities specifically to counter All for One. One more question, the lead investigator said. What are your intentions now? With All for One dead, the criminal underworld will be in chaos. Various villains will try to claim his territory, his resources, his legacy. Are you prepared for the attention this will bring you? Izuku finally looked up, his scowl transforming into something more dangerous. Let them try. Any bastard who wants to test me can come find me. I'll kill them, just like I killed their boss. Hell, I'll make it easy for them. They can all come at once. I could use the stress relief after what happened to my toilet. That was apparently enough to conclude the interview. The investigators left, looking shaken by the casual way Izuku discussed killing villains en masse. They'd dealt with harsh pro-heroes before, even some who were comfortable with lethal force. But Izuku Sukehiro was something else entirely, completely devoid of restraint, totally unbothered by the moral implications of his actions. The story continued to dominate news cycles for days. Analysis from hero experts, criminal psychologists, political commentators, everyone had an opinion on what All for One's death meant. Some celebrated it as the end of an era of terror. Others worried about the power vacuum it created. A few questioned whether a 15-year-old should have that much killing power. UA held a press conference, with Principal Nezu fielding questions about Izuku and the incident. The small mammal was characteristically diplomatic, praising Izuku's strength while carefully avoiding direct comments about the killing itself. Sukehiro acted in defense of himself and his classmates during an unprovoked attack by the League of Villains, Nezu explained to the assembled reporters. While the outcome was more extreme than we would typically encourage, the circumstances were unique. All for One was an existential threat to hero society. His elimination, however it occurred, has made the world objectively safer. But should a student have been in that position? One reporter pressed. Shouldn't the pro-heroes have been the ones to handle All for One? Nezu's smile didn't waver. In an ideal world, yes. But villains don't attack on our schedule or according to our preferences. Sukehiro did what was necessary to survive and protect others. That's what heroes do. All Might was noticeably absent from the press conference. He'd retreated to his apartment, processing the death of his nemesis in private. The man who'd defined his entire hero career, who'd wounded him so grievously that he could barely function anymore, who'd haunted his nightmares for decades. Gone. Erased by a student he was supposed to be teaching, he should have felt relieved, victorious, vindicated. Instead, he felt empty. Like a purpose he'd built his life around had been taken away without warning. Toshinori Yagi, the man behind All Might, stared at his reflection in the mirror. Skeletal, weak, barely recognizable as the symbol of peace. All for One had done this to him, and now that villain was dead, killed by someone else, while Toshinori was too weak to even help. I'm proud of you, young Sukehiro, he whispered to his reflection. You did what I never could. But God help me, I don't know what kind of world we've created by having someone like you around. Back at the destroyed training camp, the students were finally being allowed to return to UA. The facility was too damaged for continued training, and the emotional aftermath of the attack required professional counseling. Buses arrived to transport everyone back to the school. Izuku was the last to board, having spent an additional hour searching for his cigarettes in the rubble. He climbed onto the bus, katana on his back, scowl firmly in place, and immediately claimed the back seats. Sukehiro, Midoriya called out, her green hair bouncing as she turned to look at him. Are you okay? That battle was so intense and you got hurt and everyone's worried about you. I'm fine. Just pissed about my toilet and my cigarettes and this whole situation and people asking if I'm okay. He pulled out one of his remaining cigarettes and lit it. Basically pissed about everything. But you killed All for One. You saved everyone. Doesn't that make you feel good? No. I didn't kill him to save anyone. I killed him because he destroyed my toilet. If he'd left my bathroom alone, I would have just beaten the shit out of him and let the heroes deal with it. But he crossed the line, so he died. Simple as that. Midoriya looked confused. trying to reconcile Izuku's casual brutality with the heroic act he'd performed. Most of the class was still processing the same contradiction. Izuku had saved them, protected them, eliminated the greatest threat to hero society. But he'd done it all because of a toilet. Bakugo, sitting across the aisle, snorted. "You're completely insane, Sukehiro, but I respect it. At least you're honest about why you do shit, unlike these other bastards who pretend they're all noble and selfless." "Thanks, spiky bastard. You're still annoying, but you're consistent about it. I can respect that." The bus ride back was quieter than the trip out. Students dozed, processed their trauma, or discussed the attack in hushed tones. Izuku sat in the back, smoking and watching the forest pass by through the window. His key sense remained active, constantly monitoring for threats, but he detected nothing concerning. When they arrived at UA, a crowd of reporters was waiting outside the gates. Security kept them back, but they shouted questions at the buses as they passed. "Sukehiro, how does it feel to kill All for One? Did you know you were going to kill him before the fight started? What do you say to people who think a student shouldn't have that much power?" Izuku flipped them off through the bus window without breaking his scowl. The gesture was captured by dozens of cameras and would be plastered across news sites within the hour, adding to his growing reputation as the most abrasive hero student in history. The next few days at UA were surreal. Classes continued, but the normal routine felt hollow after what had happened. Students who'd been at the training camp were offered counseling. Security was increased tenfold. Pro heroes patrolled the grounds constantly, paranoid about potential retaliation from what remained of the League. Izuku attended classes with his usual lack of enthusiasm, scowling at anyone who tried to talk to him about the incident. He didn't want to be celebrated, didn't want to be analyzed, didn't want to discuss his feelings about killing All for One. He just wanted to use bathrooms in peace and maybe get through a single day without someone pissing him off. In the criminal underworld, All for One's death sent shockwaves that would be felt for years. Various villain organizations scrambled to claim territory, resources, and influence that had been under his control. But they all shared one common fear: Izuku Sukehiro, the student who'd killed their king. The teenager with darkness that consumed everything. The smart villains decided to avoid UA entirely. Dumb ones plotted revenge, not understanding that they were signing their own death warrants. The League of Villains, now under Shigaraki's uncertain leadership, went completely underground, too traumatized to act. The Hero Public Safety Commission continued their investigation, compiling reports that would probably never be fully declassified. They determined that Izuku's actions, while extreme, were legally justified as self-defense during a villain attack. But they also flagged him as a potential risk, someone with too much power and too little restraint who might become a problem if he ever decided hero society wasn't worth protecting. Nezu, reading these reports in his office, simply smiled and filed them away. Let them worry about Izuku. The boy had done what needed to be done. If the commission couldn't understand that, it was their failure, not his students. 2 weeks after the training camp attack, life at UA had settled into a new normal. The media had moved on to other stories, though Izuku's name still appeared in articles about All for One and the changing criminal landscape. Students had returned to their regular training, though with noticeably more intensity. They'd all seen what real combat looked like and were determined to improve. Izuku sat in his usual spot in class, half listening to Present Mike lecture about English grammar while he mentally reviewed his techniques. The dark cloaked Avidya slash had been powerful but exhausting. The Dimension slash, Equinox, had been effective but required perfect timing. He needed to refine both techniques, make them more efficient for future battles, because there would be future battles. All for One was dead, but the villains he'd inspired, the organization he'd built, the darkness he'd cultivated, all of that remained. And Izuku knew, with absolute certainty, that someone would eventually come for revenge. Some idiot who thought they could succeed where All for One had failed. He almost looked forward to it. A good fight would help work off his stress. Sukehiro. Present Mike's voice cut through his thoughts. Since you're paying such close attention, why don't you translate this sentence for the class? Izuku glanced at the board, read the English sentence, and translated it without hesitation. It says even the strongest warriors need rest, which is bullshit. Real warriors don't rest. They just get pissed off in different locations. The class erupted in laughter. Present Mick tried to look stern, but couldn't quite suppress his smile. That's technically correct, though your interpretation needs work. After class, as students filed out, Aizawa stopped Izuku. A word, Sukehiro. If this is about my attendance or my attitude or it's about your future. Aizawa's expression was serious. You've completed your first semester at UA. You've fought villains, killed the most dangerous criminal in history, and proven yourself stronger than most pro-heroes. The question is, where do you go from here? Izuku considered this. I keep training, keep getting stronger, keep killing bastards who piss me off. Same as always. Is that really all you want? To just be a blunt instrument destroying whatever threatens you? Yeah, that's exactly what I want. I'm not interested in being inspirational or symbolic or whatever the hell All Might is. I just want to live my life, use clean bathrooms, and remove obstacles that annoy me. If that makes me a hero, fine. If it makes me something else, I don't care. Aizawa studied him for a long moment. You know what? I believe you. Most students would give some speech about ideals or justice, but you're honest about what drives you. Even if it's as absurd as bathroom quality. There's something almost refreshing about that. Was that a compliment from you? I'm genuinely surprised, you crusty bastard. Don't let it go to your head. You're still a problem student who threatens to kill people on a daily basis, but you're my problem student. And despite everything, I think you're going to be one hell of a hero, whether you want to be or not. Izuku snorted. Whatever. Can I go now? I need to find a good toilet before lunch ends. Go. But Sukehiro? Aizawa's voice stopped him at the door. Thank you for what you did at the training camp. You saved lives, even if you won't admit it. I killed a bastard who destroyed my toilet. If that happened to save some lives as a side effect, cool. But don't make it into something it wasn't. He left before Aizawa could respond. The hallway was mostly empty, students already heading to the cafeteria or their next classes. Izuku walked slowly, his key sense monitoring the school's atmosphere. Everything felt peaceful, safe, normal. He hated it. Peace was boring. Safety was tedious. Normal was for people who hadn't learned to surpass their limits. But maybe, just maybe, boring peace was what he'd earned by killing all for one. A world where he could take dumps without being interrupted by Nomus. A world where villains thought twice before attacking UA. A world where he could be the terrifying, cigarette-smoking, toilet-obsessed bastard he wanted to be without constantly fighting for survival. Surpass your limits, he muttered to himself, lighting a fresh cigarette as he reached his destination, a bathroom he'd scouted earlier in the week. That's what it's all about, and I've surpassed mine so many times that I've forgotten where the hell they even were. He entered the bathroom, locked the door, and settled in for what he hoped would be a peaceful, uninterrupted experience. The tile was clean, the ventilation was good, the toilet was functional. Not as perfect as the one that had been destroyed, but adequate. As he sat there in silence, smoking and reflecting on the past few weeks, Izuku Sukehiro allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction. All for One was dead, killed by his hand. The League of Villains was scattered and terrified. Hero Society was safer than it had been in a century, and he'd accomplished all of it because some bastards had destroyed his toilet. Perfect? No. Heroic? Debatable, but it was his victory, his way, his life. And anyone who had a problem with that could take it up with his katana. The future stretched ahead, full of potential threats and inevitable conflicts. More villains would rise, more battles would be fought, more toilets would probably be destroyed, sending Izuku into new rampages of destruction. But that was fine. That was what it meant to surpass your limits, to keep pushing forward, keep getting stronger, keep making bastards regret the day they pissed you off. Whether as a hero, a student, or just a guy who really valued good bathrooms, Izuku Sukehiro would continue being exactly who he was. Uncouth, violent, powerful beyond measure, and absolutely uncompromising about his toilet standards. And really, when he thought about it, wasn't that what being a hero was all about? Not the inspiring speeches or the perfect saves or the public adoration, but the willingness to stand up and say, you destroyed something I cared about, so now you die, and then actually following through. All Might could keep his Symbol of Peace title. Endeavor could keep his #1 hero ranking. Izuku Sukehiro would be the guy who killed All for One over a toilet and considered it a perfectly reasonable response. He finished his business, washed his hands, and headed back to class. The afternoon would bring more tedious lectures, more annoying classmates, more bureaucrats trying to understand what he'd done and why. But that was tomorrow's problem. Today, he'd gotten to use a decent bathroom without interruption, and in Izuku Sukehiro's world, that was victory enough. The sun set over UA. High school, casting long shadows across the campus. In the distance, the city continued its endless rhythm. Heroes patrolling, villains plotting, civilians going about their lives. The world had changed fundamentally with All for One's death, though most people wouldn't realize it for years to come. But in one bathroom at UA, a scowling teenager with a katana and a cigarette had already moved on to more important concerns, like where he'd get dinner, whether his cigarette supply would last the week, and, most critically, which bathroom he'd use tomorrow. Because in the end, that was what mattered. Not the grand battles or the world-changing events, but the small moments of peace between the chaos. The perfect dump in the perfect bathroom. The satisfaction of killing a bastard who deserved it. The simple pleasure of existing on your own terms, regardless of what anyone else thought. Izuku Sukehiro had surpassed his limits so completely that limits no longer applied to him. He'd killed the unkillable, survived the unsurvivable, and done it all because someone had destroyed his toilet. And honestly, he wouldn't have it any other way.
Huge shout out to the absolute legends fueling the fire. You guys aren't just members, you're the heartbeat of this community. Thank you for believing in the vision and keeping the momentum at an all-time high. Pro heroes, the front line, the ones who step up and set the pace. These legends are the backbone of the operation. Dylan the Proud, DA, Fire 05. Symbols of peace, the pillars of the community. These titans bring the stability and the hype that keeps us standing tall through it all. Kenneth Ponteris, Neo Star Productions, Asael Cardenas, Shaquan Simmons, Agroxa 298, Elijah Saunders, Peter Hamilton, Freddy_Rose, Omega, Toxic Rune, Chris Talley, Alexander Thompson, Remorsefuls, Black Vein, Joshua Hedrington, Aaron Abercrombie, Drift Escator, Akino Himajima, Corey Tokars, Jan, X0 Hope 3656, Devin Black, Crow, Roberto Ramos Di Cristina, Dasher Games, Ray Von Crimson River, Dante Allister, Adam Yonkers, Blood Saints, Donna Cafe, Zeph, KC, Howie 60, Ignacio, Albert, Hope of the Universe. The ultimate defenders, these are the celestial tier legends whose support reaches beyond the stars. They are the final spark that lights up the dark. Sean Brooks, Keyshawn, Debbie Vo, LS Morningstar, Marl, Spintown, Greg Green, James, Kiwanyan Thompson, Juan, Zeno KJ. Thanks for watching this legendary conclusion where a destroyed toilet became All for One's death sentence. Izuku Sukehiro just rewrote MHA history with pure rage and darkness. If you want more overpowered what-if stories where limits get absolutely shattered, smash that subscribe button and ring the bell. Drop a comment telling me which hero Izuku should demolish next. Until next time, surpass your limits.